Chapter 1830. Outside the stone prison at the bottom of the cliff was an open-air area where many prisoners were locked up. Outside the stone prison was a slaughterhouse where many experts from the Lu family slaughtered ferocious beasts. There were also patrols. When Lu Wu arrived, the experts from the Lu family who were guarding the prisoners in the stone prison naturally made way for him. Lu Wu waved his hand and coldly swept his gaze across the 4 stone rooms outside the stone prison. "Bring them to the wind punishment room." With a cold gaze, he took the lead and walked into the depths of the underground stone prison. Beside him, a few experts looked at each other and sympathetically looked at Qin Feng, Ziya, the girl in green, and the girl in linen. The wind punishment room was located in the depths of the cliff and had been hollowed out by the experts from the Lu family to form a special stone room for the interrogation of the Lu family's prisoners. It was fully equipped, and even some experts from the Lu family would not be able to withstand the torture if they entered it. They would not be able to live or die. Qin Feng, Ziya, the girl in green, and the girl in linen were released from the stone wall, but their hands and feet were still shackled. The 4 of them were escorted into the stone prison by the experts from the Lu family. After opening a stone room, the experts from the Lu family pushed the 4 of them into the stone room with malice in their eyes. Once they entered the stone room, the girl in green, Luo Chang, turned pale. The stone room looked rather spacious, and was the size of a square. However, it was filled with all kinds of torture tools that were famous among the Lu family's clans. Even with the mental state of the green-clothed girl, she could not help but suck in a breath of cold air with just one glance. Many of the torture tools had only been heard of in legend. It was the first time that Ziya and the girl in linen had seen such a scene. Their faces turned extremely pale, and they forced themselves to remain calm. Seeing their expressions, Lu Wu, who had been waiting in the stone room for a long time, sneered. "If you are smart, you'd better hand over that thing immediately and spare you from suffering." The girl in linen glanced at Ziya and the girl in green hesitated. A trace of bitterness flashed across her beautiful eyes, and she was about to speak. Qin Feng spoke first. "All right, stop grumbling. Let us take a look at the torture methods of the Lu tribe and broaden our horizons. When the time comes, don't be so weak that you can't use your strength." Behind Ziya, the green-clothed girl, and even the linen-clothed girl who had opened her mouth in lust stared at Qin Feng, tongue-tied. The green-clothed girl could see that Qin Feng had come here to look for trouble. Ziya's mouth was indeed bitter. Lu Wu had clearly seen that the linen-clothed girl, Chunyu Xianxian, was about to speak. However, when he saw Qin Feng suddenly open his mouth and spoil the plan, he was instantly enraged. "All right, you want to experience the torture of the Lu family, right? I'll fulfill your wish," Lu Wu said coldly. Then, he signaled with his eyes. Among the 4 experts from the Lu clan behind him, one of them understood. With a wave of his hand, someone stepped forward and dragged Qin Feng to a stone pillar. One could see with the naked eye that the stone pillar was covered with barbed steel needles. Bang! Qin Feng's body was tied to the pillar. The iron chains that were as heavy as anchors were tied around him again and again. Qin Feng's body collided with the steel needles, but his expression did not change. Seeing Qin Feng's expression, the 4 Lu clan experts behind Lu Wu could not help but look at each other. The steel needles on the stone pillar were not ordinary steel needles. They were specially made to deal with the experts of the Lu clan. The barbs contained blood grooves and several kinds of toxins that could magnify the pain by dozens or even hundreds of times. When ordinary experts were hooked into the flesh by the steel needles, even a man of steel would not be able to help but groan. After Ziya, the green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl were not tied up for the time being. Lu Wu probably wanted to make an example of them and intimidate them. For the time being, he did not do anything to them. However, looking at Qin Feng's situation, the green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl's expressions did not change. However, their eyes were inevitably filled with shock. This was the effect that Lu Wu wanted to achieve. Seeing this, Lu Wu sneered in his heart. However, when his gaze fell on Qin Feng, it only took a glance for him to fly into a rage. At this time, Qin Feng raised his head and looked at Lu Wu. He raised his eyebrows slightly with a frivolous expression. Beat him hard! Lu Wu's face was ashen as he shouted gloomily. Yes! One of the Lu clan experts was already eager to try. When he heard Lu Wu's order, he immediately took down a black iron whip that was covered with countless small barbs from the wall. The terrifying black iron whip was enough to make one's heart go numb at a glance. It was a very famous torture in the Lu clan, the thorn punishment. That whip was called the thorny dragon whip. Each lash had the strength of an ancient dragon, a ferocious beast. It was enough to break the spine of a mid-ranked warrior. Being whipped at such a close distance would cause one's body to sink into the iron hooks on the stone pillar behind. It was an extraordinary pain. It was like a sandwich biscuit. It was so painful that one would rather die. With a ferocious expression, he held the iron whip and swung it at Qin Feng. Ah! Just like Lu Wu, Ziya, the girl in green, and the girl in linen, screams came from the pillar. Hearing the screams, the Lu clan experts became even more excited. A whip to the left, a whip to the right, lashing out non-stop. Soon, Qin Feng, who was beaten on the pillar, began to cry for his father and mother. Continuous screams came from the pillar. Hearing the screams, a smile appeared on Lu Wu's face. However, the smile soon froze on his face. He did not know if it was an illusion, but the screaming Qin Feng on the pillar suddenly changed his appearance. He turned into a fat and arrogant teenager who looked only 15 or 16 years old. Father, stop beating him, stop beating him. It's me. The teenager who was tied to the pillar was crying for his father and mother. Kwang-er. Looking at the fat and arrogant teenager on the pillar, Lu Wu's expression changed drastically. The 4 Lu clan experts behind him also reacted. That's the young master. It's the 3rd master's son. Stop it. Stop beating him. That's the 3rd master's son, Lu Kwang. The 4 of them were shocked and angry. They could not help but pull back the Lu clan expert who was carrying out the punishment. Lu Kwang was Lu Wu's only son. Although he had no talent and could not awaken the power of the family name, Lu Kwang doted on him and almost gave him everything he wanted. At this time, Lu Kwang should be playing with women in the tribe. Why was he suddenly on the torture rack? The 4 Lu clan experts were puzzled and tried to stop him. However, it was as if the executioner was possessed. He completely ignored the tugging of the 4 Lu clan expert. His face was filled with excitement, and his eyes were shining. He whipped the youth called Lu Kwang until he cried out loudly. After a few lashes, he was already badly mutilated. He was only half alive. Bastard! Seeing this, Lu Wu felt a sharp pain in his heart. He howled and sent the executioner flying with a palm strike. He then walked to Lu Kwang. However, the scene in front of him almost made Lu Wu faint from the heartache. His beloved son was badly mutilated and barely alive. While he was unconscious, the flesh on his back was hooked by the barbs. He was in so much pain that he was twitching uncontrollably. Chapter 1831. Behind Ziya, the girl in green and the girl in linen were already staring with their eyes wide open. This kind of stealthy method of teleportation was simply shocking. Qin Feng's figure appeared beside the 3 of them. Ziya's eyes lit up as she looked at Qin Feng. Uncle, what kind of divine power is this? His eyes were full of passion. Such a wonderful technique made his heart itch unbearably. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, and the linen-clothed girl, Chunyu Xianxian, were also unable to hide their curiosity as they looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng chuckled and said, "This technique is called the art of creation. I created it by combining thousands of secret techniques. It is ever-changing. Earth, water, wind, fire, the 5 elements of heaven and earth, all things in the world, and all kinds of divine powers. So powerful? The three of them widened their eyes. Their eyes were full of shock and desire. Powerful? But a small trick? Qin Feng shook his head slightly. This was just a secret technique that he created to fight against enemies. Compared to his own great Tao, these people were just a side branch. However, after Ziya, Luo Chang, Chunyu Xianxian, and Qin Feng were too pretentious. If such a secret technique was just a small trick, then what about the secret techniques of the clans that they cultivated? On the other side, Lu Kuang had been beaten to a pulp. Looking at Aiko's half-dead appearance, Lu Wu completely exploded. A group of people rushed toward the four of them in a frenzy. After Ziya, Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian subconsciously moved behind Qin Feng. At the door, he watched the scene calmly. Freeze! Qin Feng spat out a word. Lu Wu, who was rushing over, and the group of experts of the Lu clan were immediately nailed to the ground like wooden stakes. Ziya looked at the scene with a blank expression. This is also the art of creation? That's right. If you want to learn it, I will teach it to you slowly in the future. Qin Feng glanced at Ziya, then at Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian. What are you waiting for? Kill them and take the opportunity to escape. Oh, okay. Hearing this, Ziya was the first to react. He spread his arms, and the emerald by Fang divine fire emerged from his palms. Go! Following his shout, a ball of divine fire split into a dozen and charged towards Lu Wu and the others. They hit Lu Wu and the others with unerring accuracy, burning them to death while they were immobilized. At the side, Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian's expressions changed when they saw this. Releasing a dozen fireballs in one breath wasn't particularly brilliant, but being able to control each fireball with such precision was very amazing. This meant that this expert had a very powerful ability to control the field. Facing such an expert, whether it was a group fight or a one-on-one fight, it would be a headache. These people were usually the most powerful group of existences. It seems like the future desolate god of the Nine Wilderness has already embarked on the path of creating the Nine Wilderness Imperial Spirit Technique. Luo Cheng's eyes moved as she sighed in her heart. The 9 godly arts were too mysterious, especially before the king stage. They had an advantage that allowed them to kill enemies beyond their realm. The 9 Wilderness Imperial Spirit Technique, created according to the 9 godly arts, would continue to amplify this advantage. Even among the desolate gods, the future desolate god of the 9 Wilderness would be one of the best. The girl in green felt that the steps of trapping him under her skirt should be sped up. With this thought in mind, she subconsciously glanced at Chunyu Xianxian beside her. This was a very strong opponent. Under the light of the fire, Chunyu Xianxian didn't notice Luo Cheng's hostility. Her gaze only fell on Ziya's back. She remembered being carried by this young man all the way. The feeling of safety, warmth, and having someone to rely on filled the girl's heart. Outside the stone prison at the bottom of the cliff, bonfires were already lit in the evening. Piles of bonfires could drive away the fearsome beasts that were afraid of fire, and could also bring warmth to the clan members. The birthday of the Lu clan's leader was approaching, and the clan was exceptionally lively. They had already started preparing for the ceremony a few days ago. It was grand and solemn. Night had just fallen when members of the clan wearing masks started to perform a strange beach dance beside the bonfires. Patriarchs stood beside the stage built by the bonfires and prayed to the heavens. The clan's ceremony had been around since ancient times. They used this special ceremony to pray for a bountiful harvest in the next year, good weather, and the well-being of their people and animals. It was also a celebration of the beginning of prosperity. They sang and danced. In the stone prison, Lu Wu and the others were burned to death. Qin Feng, Ziya, Luo Chang, and Chunyu Xianxian changed their appearances and wore the Lu clan's clothes and mask. They walked out of the corner while the sky was dark and blended into the crowd. They took the opportunity to leave the Lu clan's Sunjieji city. They took a few tamed giant wolves and the 4 of them galloped out of the Lu clan's territory. The Sun Jieje city was the undisputed overlord of the area within a radius of 800 miles. Along the way, the Lu clan was the leader of many clans. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. However, compared to their heyday, the lord of a manor had a territory that spanned a radius of 100,000 miles. 800 miles was just the last of their glory. The current lord of Nanjong Manor, Ziya, had always been suppressing the Lu clan. Once they left the Lu clan's territory, they would reach the Chui clan's territory and then the Su clan's territory. After passing through the territories of these 2 clans, they would reach the Nanjong Manor by the Zhang River. Qin Feng and the other 3 were extremely lucky. The night they escaped, it was the birthday of the Lu clan's leader. The disappearance of Lu Wu and the others did not attract the attention of the powerful Lu clan. However, on the second day, the powerful Lu clan gradually realized that something was wrong. As the Lu clan's leader's brother, Lu Wu did not appear during the birthday celebration. This was obviously not right. After some investigation, they finally realized that something was wrong. Lu Wu was nowhere to be found. Even his only son, Lu Kuang, and some of his trusted followers were nowhere to be found. At the same time, Qin Feng, Chunyu Xianxian, and the other 3 also caught the attention of the Lu clan's higher-up. However, by the time the Lu clan sent out their pursuers, Qin Feng and the others were not far from the Chui clan. The Chui clan's territory was different from the Lu clan's and the Su clan's territory. The Su clan got its name because they lived by the Su River. The Chui clan lived in Zhangqiu and was an extremely noble clan. It was rumored that the ancestor of the Chui clan was the direct descendant of the Yan Emperor. The Chui clan was noble and had even become the master of the Zhang River Divine Palace. The branch of the Chui clan in Zhangqiu had migrated from the north of the Zhang River. It was said that the ancestor of this branch of the Chui clan had led his clansmen across the Zhang River to Zhangqiu. Today, the Chui clan was still a large clan and was not weaker than the Ziya clan. They were quite powerful in the north of the Zhang River and occupied several manors. Zhangqiu's branch of the Chui clan was rumored to be in contact with the main branch of the Chui clan in the north of the Zhang River. There were also clans that thought that this was a smokescreen released by the Chui clan to intimidate the surrounding powerful clans. However, no matter what, Zhangqiu's branch of the Chui clan was indeed very influential. However, the Chui clan was most famous for the power of their surname. Chapter 1832. The Chui family's power of awakening was the Earth Spirit. This kind of unique surname power was said to be able to tread on the earth and possess boundless strength. However, the most powerful power of awakening was the power that they awakened after they mutated. The awakening power of every expert was usually related to their parents' inheritance. If 2 men and women from different clans married, there was a certain possibility that the next generation's power would mutate. However, there was also a possibility that they could not awaken their power. Every year, the Chui family had a few people who had awakened their power. When Qin Feng, Ziya, Luo Chang, and Chunyu Xianxian arrived at Zhangqiu's Upper Ming City, they happened to meet some of the younger generation experts from the Chui family who were participating in the recruitment of the Lingyan Academy. The 4 of them did not leave immediately. Instead, they purchased some resources in Upper Ming City. Thanks to the Chui family's deterrence, the Lui family did not chase after them. Although they were unwilling, they did not dare to barge into the Chui family's territory. The relationship between clans was not harmonious. They each had their own territory. Everyone minded their own business. If one of the clans led an army to invade the territory, it would easily lead to a serious conflict. The Chui family of Zhangqiu was not easy to deal with. Upper Ming City was considered open. It was not only the gathering place of the Chui family of Zhangqiu, but also a very open market. Many clans had harvests in the forest. If the clans could not finish the harvest, they would sell it here. The Chui family ensured the safety of the goods and collected a certain percentage of taxes. This tax took up a large portion of the Chui family's finances. The Chui family placed great importance on this transaction. The Louis family's Sun Precept City also had a similar existence, but it was obviously more overbearing. Moreover, there was internal strife within the Louis family, so it was not safe to enter Sun Precept City. Obviously, Zhangqiu's Upper Ming City was more prosperous. Especially during the harsh winter, food was scarce. Only here could one buy things for the clans to survive the winter. After replenishing their supplies in Upper Ming City, the four of them set off again and headed towards the Su family's Su-du. The Su family rose in Su-du with the Su River as their backing. The Su River was a tributary of the Jiang River. Su-do was an ancient city. It was the ancient land of an ancient and enormous clan. After that illustrious clan was destroyed, the Su clan stood out among the numerous small clans and became the new master of this land. In the ruins, the Su family built Su-du. The mission of Qin Feng and the others was to hurry to Su-du and take the boat down, which would lead them straight to Nanjiang Mansion on the bank of the Jiang River. This was the shortest path. If the path from Jiesher City to Upper Brilliant City was the path of savagery, then the path from Upper Brilliant City to Su-du was the path of civilization. Many clans had formed villages and towns along the way, absorbing the surrounding clans and showing signs of prosperity. Although it was snowing heavily, one could still see the experts of the clans passing by on the snowy road in their carriages. They were all in a hurry, dragging loads of goods as they rode by. There were many such fleets. However, most of them were heavily guarded, equipped with several clan knights with swords and sabers as guards. Zia was quite surprised. The girl in green and the girl in sackcloth were two beautiful women with extraordinary backgrounds. However, they were calm and unmoved. Obviously, they had seen a lot of this. However, along the way, the girl in green and the girl in sackcloth had put on some makeup. Both of them were beautiful women. If such women appeared in the wilderness, they would inevitably attract attention and cause trouble. Therefore, they simply covered up their faces. Qin Feng and the others sped towards Su-du. Meanwhile, in Nanjiang Mansion, the spy who had been paying attention to Ziya also received news of Lu Wu's disappearance a few days later. In the clans, there was usually only one word for disappearance: death. What surprised the spies was more suspicion than surprise. Lu Wu was not a nobody. He was a king-level expert. Such an expert would also have an honorable status in the Nanjiang prefecture. The spy even suspected that it was the Jiang clan who did it. Otherwise, a king-level expert would not have suddenly disappeared. This caused the spy to mutter in his heart for a long time. For the sake of caution, the spy tried his best to reduce his movements in a short period of time to avoid being detected by the Jiang clan. This sudden change in the spy's thoughts saved Qin Feng and the others a lot of trouble. The headhunter clan was still tracking the four. However, because they had entered the hinterland of Nanjiang Mansion, they slowed down their pursuit. Although the headhunter clan was not completely hostile to the Jiang clan, they were definitely not friendly. Once the Zia clan experts of Nanjiang Mansion found traces of them, they would not be merciful. For the headhunter clan to be able to obtain such benefits from the other clans and the Jiang clan, they naturally knew the principle of concealing their strength. Half a month later, the group arrived at Su-du faster than Ziya, the girl in green and the girl in sackcloth had imagined. Su-du was a huge ancient city built by the water. The city walls were tall and stood on the bank of the torrential Su River. In front of them was a vast plain. Beside it was a tall mountain range. The mountain range seemed to be connected to Su-du. On the other side of Su-du, there was a small port town near Su-du. The port here was like a blood vessel that connected the area. It was a very important place. It was said that there were still some experts from the Zhangshui Divine Palace stationed in a place like Su-du. The Su River also had the water god sent by the Zhangshui Divine Palace. In the Su mountain range on the side, There were also experts from the clans who served as mountain gods. They sat here and guarded the heart of the city at close range. Outside Sudu, Qin Feng sensed the mountain god sitting in the Su mountain range at close range. It was an early-stage Emperor stage expert. However, he had been conferred the title of Mountain God of the Su clan by the Zhongshui Divine Palace. He had been conferred the title by Su Du and many other clans of various sizes. It was equivalent to having a rather high-level karmic position of heaven and earth. This kind of karmic position of heaven and earth formed a powerful divine domain. Sitting in it was equivalent to blocking the mighty power of the mountains and rivers. It was very powerful. An Emperor stage expert of the same level would definitely not be a match for an expert of the same level who had been conferred the title of God. In Qin Feng's view, this kind of mountain god was much more precious than the consecration of ordinary powerful clans and tribes. Qin Feng was somewhat tempted. He felt that he might have overlooked something. He could totally collect the essence of the mountains and rivers to obtain this kind of karmic position of heaven and earth. However, this thought only lingered in his mind for a moment before it was discarded. The rules of heaven and earth in the inner world were different from the spirit sea. It seemed that only the consecration of the clans could make the inner world respond to it and give birth to a comparable karmic position of heaven and earth, or even the divinity of the desolate god. If he collected too much essence of the mountains and rivers, without the recognition and consecration of the experts of the clans, he still could not resonate with the inner world and gather a powerful karmic position of heaven and earth. Qin Feng noticed that on this land, the experts of the clans did not seem to be keen on this kind of karmic position of heaven and earth that relied on the mountains. Chapter 1833. Qin Feng realized that in this desolate land dominated by the clans, those experts were more willing to occupy the water system and achieve great terror and power. The karma of heaven and earth also preferred the water attribute. On the other hand, mountain species like the mountain deity seemed to lack interest. Although many mountains were full of earth chi, many experts were disdainful or picky. Qin Feng was very intelligent and soon understood the source of this. Most of the clans lived by the water. The clans could not leave the water source and lived by the water. Naturally, if one could become the water lord of a water residence, they would receive more offerings. As for the mountain lord, he was more miserable. The desolate mountain range was everywhere. Without this mountain, he could move to other places. The mountain lord could not be ruthless because of the clan's lack of offerings. Those experts who were worshipped by the clans would not allow the mountain lord to act recklessly and damage their interests. In the distance, in the hazy fog, looking at the tall city gate of Sudu, Ziya, the green-clothed girl, and the linen-clothed girl were all rather happy. At this point, the nearly 2-month journey had finally come to an end. Although the cold wind could temper one's will, it was indeed torturous. Compared to Ziya's pure joy, the green-clothed girl's eyes flickered as she looked around with a trace of caution. Compared to ordinary ancient cities, Sudu was more important. There were gods and demons secretly monitoring it. As someone who had been reborn, before the green-clothed girl grew up, she was very worried about encountering gods and demons. Most of those experts were very powerful. If she was not careful, her secret would be completely exposed and she would become the prey of others. Looking at the tall city gate of Sudu, the green-clothed girl's eyes flickered. She remembered that a few years later, someone seemed to have picked up an extremely special treasure in the black market of Sudu as a result. His cultivation soared and he became an expert. Maybe I can try my luck. Thinking like this, after the green-clothed girl entered Sudu, she left quietly with Ziya and Qin Feng. She only said that she would soon meet up at the dock. Ziya did not pay much attention to it. He hurriedly brought the linen-clothed girl around Sudu. This was the first time he had seen such a huge clan capital. Qin Feng, on the other hand, helped the 4 of them to buy tickets at the dock. The place to buy the tickets was in the south of Sudu city. The Sioux clan had built a rather large pier outside the city along the river. From afar, one could hear the sounds of people snoring at the docks, as well as a strong fishy smell. There were even sturdy slaves moving living things from large ships that had docked at the shore. The supervisor's reprimand could be heard from afar. Qin Feng saw a wooden signboard in front of a small cabin on the dock. The surroundings were extremely crowded and lively. There was a long line of people outside the ticket office. More than 10 burly and valiant men blocked the people who wanted to buy tickets outside. What bad luck! I actually encountered a dire beast. Yes, if we delay for a few days, I'm afraid the people in the tribe will starve for a few days. It's a little strange. At this time of the year, the fish flood season has already passed. There shouldn't be any strong dire beasts migrating. Why would there suddenly be dire beasts blocking the river and causing trouble? Who knows? I heard that Lord Su Jin of Su-Du City has already taken action. There's also the Sioux River god of the water manor. They should be able to clean up the dire beasts soon. Let's go. When the ships are ready, the Sioux clan should put up a notice. Listening to the discussions beside his ears, he mixed in with the crowd and swept his gaze across. Those who came to buy tickets were experts from the clans along the river who came to buy supplies. There were also adventurers who came to Su-Du to sell their supplies. There were also youths who were not young. Most of these youths were heading to Nanjong Manor to participate in the Spiritual Flame Academy's trial. All of them had a slightly worried expression. Some were worried that the clans would not be able to get supplies in time and would starve. Some adventurers were distressed about the cost of living in Su-Du. After all, every day in Su-Du was not a small expense. The group of youths were more worried about missing the enrollment date of the Spiritual Flame Academy. At that time, they would have to wait for the next year. For the youths of the clans, every year they waited was a year's time wasted. A year's time was very likely to cause drastic changes to the living conditions of the clans. The earlier he became stronger, the safer he would be for the clan tribes. The youths were the future of the clans. Qin Feng looked thoughtful. He was not worried. Even if Zia missed the Nanjong Manor's trial, he could just bring them to the capital of the Heavenly Sacred Palace to participate in a higher-level academy's trial. As for the difficulty of the higher-level academy's trial, it was not a big problem for him. Qin Feng thought in his heart. He felt that the dire beasts blocking the river this time might be a good opportunity to get the Sioux clan's offerings. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Although Qin Feng's goal had always been to start with Nanjong Manor. In order to hide his identity, he was now acting as an old antique who was about to break through to the origami realm. Therefore, he naturally had to find a way to obtain the clan's divinity to be able to display the power above the origami realm. Otherwise, he would not be able to display the power above the origami realm in public and obtain more offerings. Mixed in with the crowd, Qin Feng returned to the city of Su-Du and prepared to find a place to stay. Qin Feng found a courtyard house. The courtyard house belonged to a member of the Sioux clan. There were many members of the Sioux clan who provided paid accommodation. With the direction of the goods, one could exchange for a few temporary rooms. After finding a place to stay, Qin Feng waited for a while at the agreed meeting place. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, who had finished touring part of the city of Su-Du, arrived one after another. When she arrived, the green-clothed girl smiled. Obviously, she had gained a lot. Seeing Qin Feng waiting for her, the green-clothed girl restrained the joy on her face and nodded respectfully. Since seeing Qin Feng stop Lu Wu with one sentence, the green-clothed girl became more respectful to Qin Feng. The green-clothed girl suspected that Qin Feng was an old antique of the Zia clan. He might be in existence from the ancient era who was about to break through to the divine realm. The green-clothed girl was very knowledgeable. Under her influence, many old antiques would come out of seclusion after reaching the peak of the Emperor realm and comprehending all the mysteries of the system. They would enter the clan to serve, obtain a high position, and receive offerings from the clan. Then, they would obtain the clan's divinity during the heaven worship ceremony and break through to the origami realm. Thinking of this, the green-clothed girl became more and more envious of Zia. Fortune favors fools. With such an old ancestor looking after him, who would dare to touch him easily? Not long after, Zia and the linen-clothed girl also arrived at the meeting place. Chapter 1834. Shudu was undoubtedly very lively. At first, Queen Zia was quite interested in going to the market every day and had some fresh experiences, but as the 3 days passed, the novelty was gradually replaced by anxiety. Nanjong Mansion's enrollment for the Spiritual Flame Academy was about to begin. If they missed it, they could only wait for next year. Queen Zia's anxiety was seen by everyone. Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian were helpless. They couldn't take a detour. If they didn't go through Shudu and went by land, their speed would be much faster. If they went with the flow of the river, their speed would be much faster. Uncle Qin, what should we do? Why don't we think of a way ourselves? In the courtyard, Queen Zia was pacing back and forth at the 10 tables, looking extremely uneasy. He carried an ancient sword on his back and looked extremely depressed and irritated. Zia, that's enough. Stop pacing in front of me. Sitting at the stone table, Luo Chang frowned and looked at Queen Zia. She glanced at Qin Feng from the corner of her eyes. Compared to the calm Qin Feng, even though Queen Zia had a bright future, Luo Chang still felt vaguely disappointed. In her original plan, she was prepared to use her beauty to win over this youth and obtain a good future for herself. But there was no harm without comparison. Queen Zia was too inexperienced. As an extremely mature girl, Luo Chang tried her best to convince herself, but she still couldn't fall in love with this youth. Even if the other party was a shiny and thick thigh in the future. On the contrary, Luo Chang's gaze fell on Qin Feng. Mature, steady, magnanimous, and tyrannical strength. No matter how she looked at it, he was much more charming than Queen Zia. Sensing the sneaky gaze of the reincarnated girl, Qin Feng glanced at her and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Lord Qin Feng's cultivation technique isn't enough to stop your appetite. Just based on the secret techniques that Lord Qin Feng taught us these few days, we're already miles ahead of the Spiritual Flame Academy. Speaking of the secret techniques that they learned these few days, the green-clothed girl's eyes lit up even more. Chunyu Xianxian, who had been resting with her eyes closed, also opened her eyes. A pair of star-like beautiful eyes stared at Qin Feng. Although the lord in front of him had only scratched the surface of the creation mysterious art that he had created, the various divine abilities involved were still an eye-opener. The 3 of them had each learned a divine ability. They all felt that their control over the power of their surnames had risen to another level in a short period of time. If they could truly master the divine abilities they had learned, they would definitely enjoy them for the rest of their lives. Zia scratched his head. After being refuted by the green-clothed girl, his face turned red. That's different. Entering the Spirit Flame Academy is the key to entering the Nanjong Mansion and entering the upper echelons of the Jiang clan. Ziya's voice lacked confidence. In the end, when she met the gazes of the other 2 women, her voice became softer and softer. Indeed, that mysterious secret technique was of great help to the 3 of them. Especially the mysterious flame technique that he had learned. It allowed him to gain innumerable benefits in controlling the spirit flame in his body. It was like the key that opened the door of power. Hearing Ziya's words, Qin Feng did not pay much attention to them. Ziya was right. The Spirit Flame Academy was not only a place for many young people of the Jiang clan to learn martial arts. It also had an extremely important meaning. It was the official academy of the Jiang clan. Most of the upper echelons of the Jiang clan were born here. Many experts who held high positions in the Jiang clan naturally had a close relationship with the students of the various great academies. If they could graduate from such an academy, it would undoubtedly be beneficial to their future in the Jiang clan. At this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed. He looked outside the courtyard. Dong dong. Accompanied by a series of footsteps, there was a hurried knock on the door. I'm going to open the door. The sudden knock on the door relieved Ziya from her awkward mood. She hurriedly went to open the door. Who's knocking on the door? It's me, esteemed guest. A slightly weak female voice came from outside the door. As the door opened, a plump woman in hemp clothes walked in. This plump woman was none other than the landlord of the courtyard. Although she was slightly plump, she looked extremely benevolent. Beside her, there were a few slightly thin and weak children around 7 or 8 years old. Looking at the guests in the courtyard, the children looked around curiously. The plump woman, Su Shi, came to the stone table. She glanced at Ziya, the girl in green, and the girl in hemp clothes. With one look, she could tell that these people had extraordinary temperaments and were not ordinary people. Looking at Qin Feng, she bowed slightly and said, Guest, the information you asked for has been settled. In the morning, the clan leader has ordered people to post a notice at the city gate, inviting talents from all over to kill the ferocious beast. If you can kill the ferocious beast of the river embracing residents for the Su clan, you will be rewarded generously. Beside the stone table, a smile appeared in Qin Feng's eyes when he heard that. He nodded slightly at the plump woman. His eyes flashed slightly. With a flip of his hand, a piece of high-quality animal skin that emitted a strong aura appeared in his hand. This is your reward. Qin Feng handed it to the plump woman. The plump landlord also knew what was good for her. Looking at this piece of animal skin that emitted a strong and fierce aura, her eyes lit up. If such a good thing was placed on her sons, it would be of great benefit to them in awakening the power of the surname. Thank you, noble. After the plump woman thanked him, she left with the children. Uncle Qin, could it be that you want to? Hearing the landlord's words, Ziya seemed to be deep in thought. Facing Ziya, Luo Chang, and Chunyu Xianxian's gazes, Qin Feng smiled slightly. He did not comment on Ziya's guess. The meaning was self-evident. Seeing this, Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian looked at each other. Their eyes flickered with a strange light. In the afternoon, Qin Feng casually took off a list at the city gate. Then, the 4 of them came to the clan mansion in the center. Seeing the list in Ziya's hand, the guards in front of the clan mansion glanced at it and directly let the 4 of them in. Another guy has come to take off the list. A bunch of brats who are still wet behind the ears dare to take off the list. In the hall outside the clan mansion, there were already many clan experts sitting there, waiting for an audience. These experts all had extraordinary auras, and there was no lack of truly powerful existences. When they saw Qin Feng's group of 4 coming in from outside, many of them swept their gazes over with hostility. However, some of them immediately looked at Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian. The 2 young girls were both rare beauties. They each had their own temperaments that made people's hearts flutter. Chapter 1835. The experts of the clans were respected. Although the 4 of them looked rather young, beautiful maids immediately came forward to serve spirit fruits and wine. Although the Su clan had set up a banquet to entertain the experts who had come to help them kill the ferocious beasts, the seats of the experts in the main hall were clearly arranged according to the strength of their relatives. The stronger one was, the closer to the seat of honor in the main hall. Qin Feng and the other 3 had not shown their abilities, were not famous, and looked young. Obviously, no one took them seriously. The Su clan expert who had led them in obviously treated them as scammers. Although polite and humble, he was obviously not enthusiastic. He threw the 4 of them to the back of the main hall and ran to warmly entertain the old seniors in the front row. When Ziya saw this scene, her face was full of anger. Others did not know Qin Feng's ability, but how could they not? In this main hall, How could some bullshit seniors of the clans have the same ability as her Uncle Qin? She was about to grab the Su clan's maid and argue. But she was stopped by Luo Chang. Qin Feng's expression did not change. He did not care to accompany the last seat. Strength was not a competition of appearance or fame. Qin Feng did not want to make a move for the time being, but there were already people who had their eyes on him. Especially when they saw the two peerless beauties seem to be particularly intimate with him, they burned with jealousy. A pair of eyes faintly looked at the exquisite bodies of the two women, and a trace of fire could not be removed. His gaze turned, and among the experts of the rogue cultivators who had come to help, one of them slammed the table and stood up. He cupped his hands together towards the many experts in the seats and shouted in a clear voice, "Let's go! Shangguan Yen admires you for coming from all over to help the Su clan. But since we came to help, we naturally have some ability. Since the host is unknown, why don't we show him a thing or two? First, to let the host be mentally prepared, so that he can be deployed at will." He cupped his hands towards the empty space on the main seat, then swept his gaze across the hall. His gaze swept over Qin Feng and Xia, and after a moment, he said, "Secondly, it's to prevent some people from making up the numbers and ruining our plan to kill the dire beasts." After that, Xia clearly felt that this guy called Shangguan Yen was looking at her with an inexplicable gaze. He cultivated the 9 godly arts, so his spiritual sense was far superior to his peers. As for Qin Feng, there was no need to even mention him. He had long since sensed that there seemed to be people who harbored enmity towards them. As for the reason, Qin Feng shook his head after glancing at the green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl, who had already recovered their appearances. As soon as Guan Yen finished speaking, a young man with a golden crown on his head and a pure white brocade robe, who was seated near the front, chuckled. "You're right." His expression was extremely conceited. "Since we have rushed over to help, it is only right for us to display some of our skills so that we can live up to the Su family's hospitality. What do you all think?" "What nonsense are you talking about? You're making us, who are here to help, act like monkeys in the hall." After that, Xia also saw some clues and muttered with a tinge of jealousy in her mouth. Qin Feng glanced at her and his gaze fell on the young man with a golden crown on his head who looked like a prince. He had heard many wandering cultivators mention the origin of this young man. He seemed to be a prince of the Water Manor's mermaid clan in Shushui. The mermaid clan was one of the many foreign races in the various water systems. The Water Manor ruled over the various water systems, and the mermaid clan was a foreign race that lived in the water systems. Many of them worked for the Water Manor, so their status was not lower than some of the large clans. The largest branch of the mermaid clan was the Jiang clan, and this prince was from the Jiang clan of Shushui. There were many princes of the mermaid clan, and Qin Feng did not put this prince in his eyes. He did not expect this prince to be so reckless and actually dared to come out and seek death. The hearing of everyone present was not weak. Although Xia was only muttering softly, her voice was almost directly in the ears of all the experts in the hall. After looking at Xia, a fierce light flashed across Jiang Lan's face, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into an indifferent smile, as if she did not care at all. However, she was secretly ruthless in her heart. "I only wanted your beauty, woof woof. Since you dare to mock me, you will not be able to bear the consequences today." On the seats, the experts of the various clans looked at Jiang Lan with a chuckle. After Xia, they did not agree or speak, but their eyes were secretly laughing. On the other side, when Shangguan Yen saw his master being humiliated, he immediately felt the same way. He was furious and made up his mind that this time, he would definitely teach Xia a lesson. "Shangguan disobeys. I am willing to throw a brick to attract jade for everyone." He directly jumped out, and under his control, a continuous castle appeared on the ground. Although the castle was small, it looked lifelike. Many strange gold stones, diamonds, beautiful jade, and agate also grew out from the castle. They looked magnificent and abnormally beautiful. Earth Spirit Clan? Seeing this scene, the eyes of many experts of the various clans moved slightly. The Shangguan clan was probably from the Earth Spirit civilization. Using the power of the Earth Spirit to mobilize the power of the Earth was quite famous among the subordinate clans around the Su clan. Gu Yen was only an ancient stage expert, but he was able to control the power of the Earth Spirit to such a miraculous extent. He was indeed quite skilled, especially those gold stones, diamonds, beautiful jade, and agate. Without a deep understanding of the Earth Spirit, it was impossible to grow these gold stones and minerals out of thin air. Soon, many little people grew out of the soil in the magnificent castle. Those little people were dressed in gorgeous clothes. Some were high up, some were dancing, and many were acting like servants, massaging the legs of the high and mighty figures in the middle. These little people formed from the soil were really like real people. Their skin was also lifelike and even dignified. Their expressions were so vivid that it was surprising. Even the sound of the musical instruments in the hall was crisp and pleasant, and the sound echoed in the hall. However, when they took a closer look, some of the experts of the various clans were delighted. The high and mighty figure in the middle was surrounded by many gorgeous half-naked women. The person who served him was none other than the mermaid prince, Jiang Lan. When Jiang Lan saw this scene, he was stunned at first, but then he smiled and glanced at the flattering Shangguan Yen with a hint of praise. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, and the linen-clothed girl, Chunyu Xianxian, suddenly looked as cold as frost. Among the women who served Jiang Lan in the center, the two of them looked like they were there. Qin Feng and Xia appeared among a group of servile servants who were massaging Jiang Lan's legs. They were trying to curry favor with him and were massaging his legs. They looked like clowns. There were all kinds of training and ugliness among them. The mermaid prince, Jiang Lan, and some other experts of the various clans chuckled. Chapter 1836. Many experts looked at Qin Feng and the other three purely to see a joke. Ziya's face was pale with anger. Uncle Qin. His eyes were filled with anger like a volcano. Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian also looked over. It doesn't matter. Today I'll kill him. Qin Feng looked indifferent. He looked at the center of the hall and the castle on the ground. His divine consciousness moved and a trace of mighty force descended. In an instant, Shangguan Yan's expression changed drastically. He felt that he had completely lost control of the miniature castle above the hall. For some reason, not only him, but even the mermaid prince Jiang Lan shrank and entered the miniature castle. The miniature castle's style changed in an instant. The heavenly palace-like scene changed abruptly, as if it had turned into an Azura hell. Outside the miniature castle, groups of terrifying Azuras rushed in, directly capturing the merman prince Jiang Lan and Shangguan Yen, who were still in a daze after being shrunk to enter the miniature castle. What followed was an incomparably cruel scene. Qin Feng was angry at the rudeness of these two people, so he simply demonstrated all kinds of tortures that were said to be used by the big clans, as well as all kinds of punishments that he had gone through along the way. All kinds of tortures directly tortured the two of them until they became idiots whose souls were completely numb. Many of the experts present were baffled, not understanding why the atmosphere had changed so drastically. Only some of the experts at the top of the rankings were able to see through the situation. They knew that Jiang Lan and Shangguan Yen might have kicked an iron plate. Their faces changed drastically as they looked at Qin Feng in shock. The experts of the other clans also quickly realized that something was wrong. As the secret technique dissipated, Jiang Lan and Shangguan Yen, who had been tortured tens of thousands of times, lay on the ground in a daze. They twitched from time to time and drooled. Their eyes were like stones, completely numb. Good. This secret technique is really good. It can even turn you into an idiot. It's really rare and admirable. Ziya reacted later. She glanced at Qin Feng and was the first to stand up from her seat. She clapped her hands and laughed. How audacious! You all actually dared to use secret methods to kill the mermaid prince. The hall instantly boiled over. Someone stood out and stared coldly at Qin Feng and the other three. It was a clan expert ranked second on the left. He was dressed in a black robe and had a white beard. At this moment, his face was full of anger. He was a very famous late-stage king stage expert. Gazai clan. This expert from the Guizha clan was from a very civilized rogue cultivator clan located near the Sudu River. He obtained the surname from the Su clan and created the Guizha clan on his own. He had a deep relationship with the mermaid race's Jiang clan in Shushui and was often an honored guest of the mermaid race. Seeing Jiang Lan die, he immediately decided to take revenge for Jiang Lan and repay Bin En of the mermaid race. Seeing that the Ghostfather Needle was facing the four of them, Zia was the first to react. Your Excellency, please don't distort the truth. It's obvious that Shangguanyin was not strong enough. He failed to show off his secret technique and ended up killing himself. You say we killed the mermaid prince by showing off our secret technique? Do you have any proof? With Qin Feng as her backing, Zia's words were very forceful. Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian also stood up, their slender hands grabbing the weapons beside them. Proof? Of course the Ghostfather had no proof. Once I capture you, I have my ways to make you talk. The Ghostfather looked coldly at Qin Feng and the others, the murderous intent in his eyes undisguised. With a furious roar, a black mist seemed to appear around him. A formless wave of terror appeared and attacked the depths of the four's souls. The Ghostfather's surname power was the most unique. It was related to the soul and could be used to create all sorts of unique soul weapons. There were soul conches, soul scythes, soul swords, soul fires, soul chains, and so on. This kind of power was quite unique. At the very least, it could suppress cultivators of the same level. This was the Ghostfather's trump card. The surname power above his head formed a formless soul conch. When the conch blew, no matter how strong one was, they would lose their wits in an instant and their limbs would go limp. But when used against Qin Feng, it was like kicking an iron plate. Qin Feng's expression didn't change, but there was a trace of surprise on his face. He was in need of a powerful character as a gift to the Su family. The Ghostfather had delivered himself to his doorstep and solved his urgent need. Fire. Qin Feng spat out a single word. In an instant, everyone saw Qin Feng extend a hand, and a small cluster of flames shot out from his fingertip. He lightly blew out a breath, and an extremely dazzling fiery red brilliance suddenly enlarged. In that instant, everyone felt as if their bodies were being digested by the fire. The Ghostfather's expression changed drastically. The terrifying fire exploded and engulfed him, turning him into dust. Seeing this scene, the hall instantly became dead silent. A late-stage king-level cultivator died just like that? A king-stage powerhouse, Any clan that gave birth to such a powerhouse could instantly establish a large clan, such as the Bull clan and the Lu clan, entrenching themselves in a region. In some large clans, every time a king-level cultivator appeared, they would hold a banquet to celebrate. Qin Feng retracted his hand and the fire dissipated. He smiled. Looks like he won't be able to get any evidence from us. He looked around at some of the clan cultivators in the hall. I wonder if there's anyone else who wants to get evidence from the Zia clan. In the hall, seeing Qin Feng's killing methods, no one dared to make an enemy out of him. Among them, the two leaders were only slightly stronger than the Guizhai clan leader. Didn't they see that the Ghostfather was killed before he could even make a sound? Why would they fight to the death for the sake of a merman prince? Your Excellency, you're truly skilled. Such powerful fire elemental energy, you're no weaker than any emperor-level cultivator. I wonder which clan you're from. My Su clan has failed to welcome you. Just as everyone was silent, From behind the curtains on one side of the hall came a hearty laugh. A man in hemp robes with a unique aura walked out from behind the curtains. Behind him were several powerful cultivators from the Sioux clan. He had a smile on his face and had a magnanimous aura. He looked extremely friendly and had an amiable temperament within his dignified aura. Especially when his gaze landed on Qin Feng, there was an additional sense of generosity and temperament. However, looking at this person, Qin Feng sneered inside. This person had arrived early in the morning and had been waiting at the door, watching everyone fight. When the Ghostfather wanted to capture the four people, he could have attacked, but he hid to the side and watched. He was an extremely cold-blooded person. Chapter 1837. Su Jin was the patriarch of the Sioux clan and the only Emperor stage powerhouse. Within tens of thousands of kilometers of Su-du, he naturally had his ways. Perhaps it was because he was worshipped by many clans of various sizes, but he had an extremely strong aura of a superior. Seeing Su Jin appear, the powerhouses of the clans at the front hurriedly stood up to welcome him. "Greetings, Lord Su Jin." They spoke out of respect. Su Jin's gaze fell on some of the powerhouses at the front. His gaze fell on a powerhouse who wore a headscarf and had his long hair woven into countless small whips. He carried a long saber on his back. Under that powerhouse's seat, there was a huge black snake behind him. The snake's head was raised high and appeared on his shoulder. Nan. This was a wandering powerhouse of the Sioux clan. He had been staying in a small clan affiliated with the Sioux clan for the past few years, and was one of the powerhouses of that small clan. This was a powerhouse of the Yin clan of the Jiang clan. The Yin clan was a great noble clan north of Jiang River. They were extremely powerful. Although they did not have much influence south of Jiang River, their connections could not be underestimated. In the past, the two of them had interacted many times. He did not expect Nan to be alarmed this time. However, when he thought of the conditions he offered, it was not surprising that he attracted a Peking stage powerhouse. Although he thought highly of him, Su Jin still only nodded. Seeing Su Jin's attitude, Nan's gaze moved slightly. He was somewhat displeased, but he immediately suppressed this trace of discomfort. Su Jin had broken through to the Emperor stage a few years ago. Although the Emperor stage and the Peking stage were only half a step away, this half step was already worlds apart in status. No matter where they went, Emperor stage powerhouses had noble and lofty statuses. Qi Xiu of the Qi clan greets Lord Su Jin. On the other side, a rather thin woman dressed in colorful clothes with a pitch-black face stood up. The most eye-catching thing was that there were a few five-colored spiders crawling on one of her arms. The crawling sounds were hair-raising. The Qi clan was originally a rather large clan that lived around Su-du, but they had fallen in the attack of the ferocious beast. Qi Xiu was a rather legendary woman. When the Qi clan was torn apart by the ferocious beasts, she had no choice but to hide in the mountains with a portion of the old and weak. While hiding, most of the old and weak of the Qi clan died on the way. Her children who had not grown up had died on the way, but she had another fortuitous encounter. Not only did she not die, but she also cultivated some extremely powerful secret technique. She had encountered a poisonous beast that was close to a desolate god. She obtained a part of the ability to control over of poison. Her surname Strength. From the myriad poisons event, he had learned many secret techniques that allowed him to control all kinds of deadly poisons. Relying on this secret technique, not only did this woman lead the remaining members of the Qi clan out of the mountain range, she even reclaimed a sizable territory. Many experts of the clans had suffered losses in her hands. In the surrounding clans, large and small, the fierce name of the Spider Mother was enough to make children stop crying in the middle of the night. TSK, I wonder if the Su family's promise still counts. The Qi clan was not as respectful as Nan. Her ferocious eyes were filled with undisguised greed and viciousness. Su Jin saw it but did not care. He glanced at Qin Feng and the others and laughed heartily. Yes, of course I'll keep my word. All the experts who participate in the battle will be rewarded according to their merits as long as they can hurt the ferocious beast. They will be given all kinds of spiritual fruits and treasures, and even the clan's offerings. The Su clan will keep their word. After Ziya, Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chang also stood up from their seat. Qin Feng also stood up from his seat. They watched as Qin Feng walked over. Whether it was the experts of the other clans, Nan, or the two famous Peak King stage experts of the Qi clan, they all subconsciously made way for him. Earlier, Qin Feng's methods had left a very deep impression on them. Although Qin Feng did not reveal any aura, Su Jin felt a huge pressure from the bottom of his heart when he saw Qin Feng walk over. Although he was shocked, Su Jin's expression did not change. He looked over and smiled. May I know who this senior is? Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. Ziya understood and immediately walked out and said in a deep voice, This is one of the patriarchs of the Ziya clan, Ziya Qin Feng. Patriarch? Hearing this, the pupils of many experts from the clans constricted slightly. Even Nan and the Qi clan, who were close by, had a slight change in expression. Patriarchs were not something that just anyone could be respected as patriarchs in the various clans. Only experts above the emperor stage could be called patriarchs by the various clans. After Su Jin advanced to the emperor stage, he had the qualifications to be respected as a patriarch by the Su clan. In the clans there were a few experts who were worshipped by the clan. Generally speaking, only people at the level of patriarchs could be moved to the center of the clan temple during the sacrificial ceremony. Everyone's gaze changed slightly, and many of them secretly rejoiced. Even though they had some guesses earlier, how could it compare to the shock of being announced directly? At the same time, they rejoiced that they were not as impulsive as Jiang Lan and the others. Or else, if they offended a patriarch at the emperor stage, their future days would not be easy. People of the Ziya clan, Su Jin was shocked inwardly, and then a trace of understanding flashed across his eyes. There were rarely any emperor stage experts around Su Du, however. If it was the Ziya clan, then it made sense. The Ziya clan was deeply rooted and had a strong foundation. They were also the overlord of the southern Zhang prefecture. Most of the emperor stage experts appeared in this sect. So it's a senior of the Ziya clan. No wonder your understanding of the profound mysteries of fire is so profound. This time, to be able to get the help of an expert of the Ziya clan to kill the evil beast, we will definitely succeed. Su Jin's expression did not change. He was still straightforward, but one could clearly feel that he had become more intimate. When Ziya saw this scene, she was slightly proud. Inwardly, she was extremely proud that the Ziya clan had recruited this Yunqin senior into the clan. He could feel that the gazes of the surrounding people landed on them. Surprise, shock, respect. Many gazes were different, but there was no longer the contempt and coldness from before. After the group of people introduced themselves, Su Jin did not continue to be courteous and sat down according to the host and guest. This time, the four of them were invited to sit at the head of the table to show respect. After Ziya, Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chang also basked in the light and sat behind Qin Feng. They could be said to have gained a lot of prestige. They could clearly feel that many people in the main hall looked at them with a slightly fervent gaze. In the main hall, after some formalities, Su Jin directly spoke about the matter of the evil beast, as well as the arrangements to kill the evil beast on the second day. Chapter 1838. The next day, above the Su River, the muddy river was surging. Two huge ships were sailing on the wave. On the ships, many powerhouses of the clans were gathered. On the ships, the battle flags of the clans with black and gold borders stood in great numbers, giving off an extremely terrifying majesty. From afar, the two huge ships looked like huge monsters. On the deck, Many powerhouses of the clans were gathered together. Many people were holding weapons, looking excited and nervous. Some young powerhouses of the clans even had red and hot faces. After Ziya, Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Shang stood beside Qin Feng. Su Jin stood at the very front. He was wearing a warrior's robe and a black and gold cape. His figure was slender and tall, and he had a domineering aura about him. Behind him, there were many powerhouses of the Su clan wearing black robes with gold threads. Each of them had weapons on their backs, and their auras were iron-blooded. One could tell at a glance that they were warriors who had fought hundreds of battles. The most peculiar thing was that they each had a bundle of special hemp rope on their bodies. On the right side were Nan, the Qi clan, a few king stage powerhouses, and more than 10 archaic stage powerhouses. There were more than 100 people on the deck, and almost all of them were famous figures of their clans. As for the king stage powerhouses like Nan and the Qi clan, they were even more famous. This side was extraordinary. Qin Feng stood on the deck and watched as the ship rode the wind and waves toward the intersection of the Su River and the Zhang River. His eyes flickered with an inexplicable expression. His extremely sensitive divine sense also sensed that there was another Emperor Stage powerhouse in the cabin. Other than that Emperor Stage powerhouse, there was another faintly discernible grand force in the Su River that seemed to be pushing the two ships forward at a rapid speed. "Your Excellency, I'll need your help to deal with that beast this time." Sensing that they were approaching their target, Su Jin looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng nodded. "Of course. A mere beast emperor dares to cause trouble in our clan's territory. Naturally, we'll make sure it doesn't return." When Ziya heard this, she felt exceptionally proud and could not help but straighten her body. Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chang looked at each other. It was just a beast emperor. Perhaps only a powerhouse like Qin Feng could use such a term to describe a beast emperor. He changed to any other place. A beast emperor. A wild beast emperor was a complete disaster. Countless clans could become delicacies in the mouths of ferocious beasts because of one beast emperor. As the ship moved straight ahead, the experts of the underwater mansion pushed the waves forward, and the surging Zhang River appeared in their sight. Rumble! As if it had sensed something, the area around the delta formed by the intersection of the Su River and the Zhang River suddenly became turbulent. The sound of surging torrents could be heard for miles. The sailors on the two ships, as well as the people on the decks, immediately became somewhat unstable and swayed. "They're here. Everyone be careful." Sensing something, Su Jin shouted loudly. Many people were quick-witted and made a prompt decision. They grabbed onto the nearest objects, ropes, railings, and masts. In the next moment, a terrifying wave surged towards the two ships. "How dare you!" An extremely angry roar seemed to come from the bottom of the water, and a surging force met the attack. However, under the impact of this wave, it collapsed upon contact. The huge wave that was as tall as a two-story building was about to drown all the experts on the two ships, and even the ships felt like they were smashed to pieces. "Evil creature, do you really think this move will work?" Su Jin's expression changed, and then it turned cold. He waved his sleeve, and an ice-blue bead suddenly appeared. "See calming bead." When this bead appeared, several voices faintly emerged from the water. They carried a hint of astonishment, which was soon followed by a blazing heat. Among them, there was a beautiful woman in blue whose eyes were shining brightly. She was a king-level expert from the Liu family. The eyes of some water-type experts also lit up. The sea calming bead was a kind of spiritual bead nurtured in a place with abundant water in the river. It contained the power of the river, and any water-type expert who stayed by it for a long time could not only rapidly improve their water-type techniques, but also have incredible invisible power. It could control the power of the river and turn it into a surging force to defend oneself against enemies. If one stood in the middle of the river and had a sea calming bead, even an expert one level higher would find it difficult to break through their defense in a short time. The sea calming bead, which was the size of a goose egg, emitted a blue light under Su Jin's control. It was visible to the naked eye, and the surging waves seemed to have met their nemesis. They were attracted by the sea calming bead, and like a whale sucking in water, they suddenly disappeared into the sea calming bead. Seeing this scene, Su Jin was secretly delighted. This sea calming bead could indeed restrain water-type exotic beasts. It was not in vain that he personally borrowed the sea calming bead from the Zhongshui underwater residence. Rumble. In front of him, huge waves surged. Vaguely, a huge shadow emerged from under the huge waves. One could see a huge dark shell that was dozens of feet wide. Two red lantern-like pupils were faintly discernible in the surging mist. Looking at the sea calming bead in Su Jin's hand, anyone could sense the monster's greed for the sea calming bead. The huge beast sensed that swallowing the bead would be extremely beneficial to it. It could greatly increase its cultivation, allowing it to complete its transformation earlier. At the same time, some people had already seen the huge beast's true body. It was a turtle. A huge golden turtle. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as he watched this scene. It was rumored that his third senior brother, the primogenitor Lingbao, the aquamarine palace, was built on a huge golden turtle. This golden turtle was clearly not as huge as the one that carried the aquamarine palace, but it was probably no less ferocious. According to Su Jin, a new water eye seemed to have been born under the delta where Su Shui and Zhang Shui intersected. That was why this huge beast emperor was attracted. This huge beast emperor was already at the point of transformation. It only needed to occupy the water eye and cause its bloodline to transform again. Then, it could awaken a trace of the power of the rage god and complete the transformation of a pre-desolate beast. Desolate beasts needed to be born from the earth veins. They needed some special places to complete their transformation. The water eye under the delta was extraordinarily attractive to the beast emperor that accidentally discovered it. The Su family had no objections to the golden turtle occupying the water eye. But when the golden turtle occupied the water eye, it did not forget to swallow the creatures in the underwater residence and destroy the Su family's merchant ship. This completely enraged the Su Shui underwater residence and the Su family. However, with the water eye and the power of the water eye, the golden turtle's power was even greater than Su Shui's water god. After several battles, the Su Shui underwater residence and the Su family were defeated. The golden turtle was not an ordinary beast. Its intelligence was not inferior to that of a martial monarch expert. When it sensed that its innate ability was restrained by the sea calming bead, it immediately changed its tactics. Chapter 1839. Rumble. It was as if a huge whirlpool had formed at the intersection of the Su River and the Zhang River. On the ship, Qin Feng's sharp eyes saw that the four legs of the golden turtle in the center of the water eye were moving quickly. It was spinning on the spot, and its huge body was like a spinning top. With the water eye as the center, it formed a deep whirlpool that was hundreds of feet long. The two ships were involuntarily pulled by the suction force of the huge whirlpool and tilted toward the water eye. On the ship, many clans hurriedly grabbed the railings and ropes beside them to stabilize their bodies as the ship tilted unsteadily. But there were also people who didn't roll physically and mentally. They rolled like gourds, along with the tilted deck, to unknown places, and even fell into the surging river, being sucked into the deep water whirlpool and becoming the food of the golden sea turtle. Ah, hold on tight! Help! Some of the weaker clans were directly swept up by the shocking suction force and flew out of the deck and into the whirlpool. Qin Feng stood on the spot. Ziya was behind him, and Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Shang were beside him. A force that was as stable as Mount Tai helped them stabilize their bodies, and they did not move at all. No matter how the deck shook and the suction force rose into the air, it could not shake their bodies at all. When Madame Qi, who was beside Yin Nan, saw this scene, her expression changed slightly. She immediately swept a glance behind her and saw the chaotic scene on the ship. Her eyes flashed with a strange light, and her figure changed. In an instant, she turned into a colorful light and flew away. She moved quickly on the ship like a colorful light. In an instant, strange spider webs appeared on the ship, locking the cabin and the railings in place. The sticky spider webs instantly became an excellent foothold. Su Jin's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he immediately shouted loudly. Everyone, grab the spider webs! At the same time, his body leaped and like a yellow light, he appeared on the mast in an instant. Freeze! Looking at the Dinghai Pearl in his hand, he activated it with an incantation. The Dinghai Pearl once again displayed its power, and a magnificent power that could freeze mountains and rivers spread out. The light swept across, and the suction force of the whirlpool formed in the center of the water. I seemed to have frozen. The water power of the whirlpool hundreds of feet around the water, I seemed to have been completely suppressed by the Dinghai Pearl. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Su Jin's face. No matter how ferocious the golden turtle was, it would be restrained by the sea-calming pearl. Maybe, with this treasure, he could monopolize the killing of the golden turtle and gain face in the Zhongshui Divine Palace. On the deck, Qin Feng saw Su Jin's expression and understood what he was thinking. A sneer flashed across Qin Feng's eyes. It was too early for Su Jin to celebrate. However, it was almost time for him to make his move. Rumble! Not long after, just as Qin Feng had predicted, before Su Jin could celebrate for too long, a heaven-shaking boom came from beneath the water eye. Immediately after, the faces of the experts from the various clans turned pale. Looking at Su Jin, who was spinning like a cannonball, shooting out from the bottom of the water and heading straight for the two large ships, he was already stunned. He did not expect that the seemingly clumsy golden turtle would have such a move. The ferocious beast's incomparably tyrannical body blasted forward like a rotating cannonball. Bang! In an instant, accompanied by the screams of many experts from the various clans, the two large ships were suddenly reduced to dust under the impact of the golden turtle. Su Jin activated the sea-calming pearl at the last moment, and the master and disciple used the power of the river to resist the violent impact. However, he was also knocked back in an instant and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew backward, and many of his ribs were broken. At the critical moment, in the cabin, a yellow light soared into the sky, grabbed Su Jin's body, and sped away. Many of the experts from the various clans who came to help on the two large ships were not so lucky. As they cried for their parents, they were smashed into pieces by the golden turtle. Only a few king stage experts relied on their own strength to delay it for a few moments. However, after a few moments, under the terrifying impact of the golden turtle, they were also smashed into pieces. Among them, the strongest was Yin Nan. Relying on his peak king stage strength, Madame Qi sensed the danger in advance and flew away. Although she was hit, her flesh and blood collapsed, and she spat out blood. She followed the waves and escaped with serious injuries. The unexpected collision of the golden turtle almost defeated all the experts on the two large ships. However, there were exceptions. After Qin Feng grabbed Xia, Chunyu Xianxian, and Luo Chang, in the light of the water, flashed and directly escaped 4 to 5 miles away. They were unscathed. Lord Qin Feng, is this the water escape secret technique of the 5 elements of the art of creation? Above the water, Luo Chang looked at her group of people walking out of the light of the water. Her beautiful eyes were full of shock. In the 5 elements, water and wood coexisted. She had already learned the wood escape secret technique of the 5 elements and had always coveted the water escape secret technique. The art of creation created by Qin Feng was quite magical. Although the 5 elements of the art of creation was called the escape secret technique, it actually included the secret technique of controlling the 5 elements. Anyone who cultivated it could directly become a desolate god and become a desolate god. Qin Feng had once said that the three of them could cultivate the wood, fire, and earth elements respectively. However, Luo Chang wanted to cultivate one more element or all five elements. As someone who had been reborn, she knew some secret techniques to expand the power of surnames. She could mutate or expand the power of a simple surname. However, Qin Feng did not answer Luo Chang's question. He casually saved the three of them and threw them above the water. His gaze fell on the huge golden turtle. It also sent Su Jin and the monarch stage expert in the cabin flying. The golden turtle still did not give up. As it spun, it opened its huge mouth. A terrifying icy power was born from its huge mouth and blasted towards Su Jin and the other monarch stage expert who was flying with Su Jin. The monarch stage expert had a special identity. He was also an expert of the Su clan. Moreover, he was the only remaining ancestor of the Su clan. Usually, this ancestor was overseeing the Su clan's mountain range. As a mountain god, he controlled the strange phenomena around Su Du as a mountain god. He was undoubtedly quite tyrannical. His strength surpassed Su Jin, who had just broken through to the early monarch stage. However, after leaving the Su clan's mountain range, and without the support of the power of the ley lines, he could not exert much power on the Su River. On the contrary, the golden turtle sat on the water eye and had the help of the water eye's power. Even the water god of the Su River was suppressed by it. This was one positive and one negative. Two differences, one like a natural chasm, were born. In the face of that terrifying cold current, even the Su clan's mountain god could not help but feel abnormally desperate. In the depths of the river, a surging will controlled the power of the entire Su River. It was a stalwart figure that seemed to have fused with the Su River. He roared again and again, trying to rescue them. However, under the suppression of the golden turtle's water eye, the surging will of the water god was suppressed to the extreme. He could not even control the power of the Su River for a short period of time. Chapter 1840. No! Looking at the terrifying chill that was coming at them, Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan could only let out desperate roars in panic. At this moment, a figure appeared out of thin air in front of them. Zia, Qin Feng? The two of them were stunned. Then, a scene that left the two of them dumbstruck appeared. Qin Feng stretched out a hand. A crimson flame appeared. In an instant, it was as if a huge sun had suddenly appeared. Rumble. The crimson sun collided with the huge golden turtle and sent it flying in an instant. Bang! When it fell into the water exploded and endless white waves churned. Faintly, earth-shattering roars of pain could be heard from the depths of the water. Seeing this, Su Jin, the mountain god of the Su clan, and even Lord Su Shui, who was underwater, were dumbfounded. They could not believe their eyes. Yin Nan, who was lucky enough to escape with his life at the cost of serious injuries, and the Qi clan felt as if they had been hit in the head by a heavy hammer. They looked at the scene in a daze. Roar! Under the water, huge waves surged into the sky. Under the terrifying waves, a huge creature appeared. It was the golden turtle. Sizzle! White smoke appeared from its abdomen. Under the water vapor, a dark red color could be vaguely seen. It emitted a terrifying high temperature. That was the place where Qin Feng had hit. The blazing high temperature caused the golden turtle unbearable pain. A pair of lantern-like eyes stared at Qin Feng with a ferocious blood-red light. Roar! A heaven-shaking roar resounded. Golden turtle roared and rushed towards Qin Feng. It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a mouthful of cold air. I originally wanted to spare your life. Since you don't know what's good for you, I'll kill you here today. Seeing the golden turtle charging forward again without fear of death, Qin Feng shook his head. A faint ghastly look appeared in his pitch-black eyes. He stretched out a hand again. On his palm, the crimson flame turned golden. Gulp! When Su Jin and the mountain god of Su clan saw the small cluster of flames that did not reveal anything, for some reason, they suddenly felt a sense of terror rising from the bottom of their hearts. Under the water, Lord Su Shui could feel it even more clearly. He only felt the appearance of this small cluster of golden red flames, and the entire Shui that was now one with him seemed to tremble. It conveyed a terrifying emotion, fear. It was as if that handful of golden red flames had the power to burn mountains and boil seas. Qin Feng's gaze was as cold as a dot. His palm curled like a nimble snake. Vaguely, Qin Feng recalled the fist art he had obtained for the first time after his rebirth. Fusing fire and water, he threw out a punch. At this moment, everyone behind Qin Feng felt as if all of Su Shui had been mobilized by Qin Feng's punch. One punch was enough to overturn rivers and seas. Bang! It directly blasted the oncoming golden Ao into pieces. Countless pieces of flesh and blood flew everywhere. That sturdy structure that was strong enough to withstand the attack of an Emperor's stage cultivator suddenly exploded, as if it had collapsed. The huge dark tortoise shell flew into the sky. The golden Ao that was about to advance to the Emperor's stage didn't even have time to grunt before it was finished off with a single punch. Such a terrifying scene caused all the experts of the clans present to be dazed. Qin Feng also stared at his fist in a daze. At the same time, a brand new comprehension rushed into the depths of his soul. Bang! 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 Crackle! It was as if countless thunderbolts came from the depths of his soul, following this sudden comprehension that seemed to flow naturally into his divine power. At this moment, whether it was his divine power, his flesh and blood, or even his eternal soul, Qin Feng felt a change that was close to being reborn. Almost instantly, his divine power was compressed and condensed hundreds of thousands of times. Feeling this change, a natural smile appeared on his face. After setting off from the Xia clan and passing through the territories of the Gong clan, the Lu clan, and the Su clan, after 2 months, with the help of the change in his state of mind, the Eternal Secret Codex finally advanced from the 4th heaven to the 5th heaven. At this point, this little change was equivalent to tens of thousands of years or even millions of years of painstaking comprehension. If he could be considered an expert in the second realm of the eternal realm before, then now he had stepped into the threshold of the Lord of Heaven and caught up with those old antiques who had survived from the last Chaos era. Although he could only be considered a new Lord of Heaven, with the eternal true thunder at the peak of the 4th heaven, the difference between the current Qin Feng and the previous Qin Feng was like a chasm. Slightly withdrawing his palm and feeling the changes in his body, Qin Feng's expression returned to calmness. He just faintly felt every inch of change in his body, every trace of transformation of his divine power. It was like an eternal sacred body. The eternal law was being tempered by the eternal true thunder bit by bit, and it would undergo millions of transformations every moment. Let's go, we can go back now. With a flash of brilliance, Qin Feng took a step forward and appeared beside Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan. By the way, the Su clan won't forget the promise you posted, right? Qin Feng's gaze fell on Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan. Feeling the faint gaze and meeting the pair of dark eyes, Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan felt an invisible pressure appear in the depths of their hearts. We wouldn't dare, we wouldn't dare. Almost instinctively, Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan couldn't help but gulp. By the time the two of them reacted, Qin Feng had already left with Xia. Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chang had already left. 3 days later, at the docks of Su Du on the city wall, 3 figures watched as a large ship left. It smoothly descended and headed in the direction of Zhang River. The 3 figures had different expressions. Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan breathed a sigh of relief. They had finally sent away this terrifyingly capable expert. Lord Shui, on the other hand, had a look of joy on her face. From the beginning to the end, This terrifyingly capable expert had only asked for the ancestral sacrifice that the Sioux clan had promised him. As for the empty water eye, he had abandoned it like it was a worn-out shoe. The water eye contained the power of the water vein, which was comparable to a powerful river. The golden turtle sat on the water eye and suppressed him, the water lord, to the point that he couldn't even raise his head. If he could monopolize this water eye, there was no doubt about the benefits. What a pity! While Su Jin breathed a sigh of relief, he also felt a sense of regret. What's a pity? The mountain god of the Sioux clan raised his head and looked at this rather famous junior of the Sioux clan. It's a pity that I don't have the ability to support such an expert. Su Jin didn't hide his regret. Hearing this, the mountain god of the Sioux clan's expression flickered slightly. Su Du now had 2 monarch stage experts. A monarch stage expert completely had the qualifications to oversee a prefecture. Su Jin was different from him. He had only broken through to the monarch stage after becoming the mountain god. Su Jin had broken through to the monarch stage on his own. Such a monarch stage expert had the qualifications to build his own prefecture. Unfortunately, Su Du still lacked some prerequisites to build his own prefecture. The Sioux clan's foundation in the heavenly sacred hall was still somewhat insufficient. However, after worshipping that expert, perhaps this tribe could speed up a few steps. The mountain god of the Sioux clan looked at the large ship in the distance. Chapter 1841. On the deck of the ship, Qin Feng sat cross-legged. Beside him was Xia, Luo Chang, Chunyu Xianxian, and the others, who were comprehending the changes in the tide. The profound mysteries of heaven and earth came from the same source. To a certain extent, some profound mysteries were shared. For example, in the tide, one's power could stack waves. Fire, wood, and earth elemental powers could also stack their power to attack in the same way. Qin Feng taught the 3 of them the fire mystic art, wood mystic art, and earth mystic art. The 3 of them took this opportunity to refine the benefits they had obtained from the Sioux clan. The 3 of them each held a spiritual item in their hand. Thanks to Qin Feng received the ancestral worship of the Sioux clan and the clans around the Sioux clan. Although the 3 of them did not receive such treatment, they were still given the opportunity to choose a few spiritual items from the Sioux clan's inventory. After refining the spiritual items, they would be able to advance from a high-rank warrior to an ancient rank. On the deck, many sailors glanced at the 4 of them, their eyes filled with respect. Especially when they looked at Qin Feng, they were even more respectful. In the depths of Qin Feng's soul, there was an invisible blessing around the eternal life chart. Following the blessing of the invisible blessing, Qin Feng's spiritual force seemed to descend on the Su Du and the clans around the river. The invisible light of sacrifice followed this invisible connection and blessed the eternal life chart, causing it to gradually emit a golden light. Qin Feng felt that the origin of the inner world might be more than 10 times richer than the surface world. The ancestral worship of the Sioux clan here was almost comparable to half of the divine realm. It was completely comparable to the Asir divine realm that he had founded. If it were not for the inner world's rich heritage, how could a mere 100 clans give birth to such a rich blessing? In other words, it was easier for the inner world to give birth to powerhouses than the surface world. Qin Feng couldn't help but sigh in admiration. If those eternal powerhouses from the surface world discovered the inner world, then even if they had to take the risk of not being able to get out, those eternal powerhouses would most likely rush forward. Nanzhong Manor was a famous capital south of the Zhang River. It was extremely prosperous. The majestic ancient city stood to the south of Zhang River like a pearl. However, if one were to take a closer look, one would realize that this majestic ancient city was actually built on a huge underground volcano. A volcano faced a river. A place like this where water and fire intersected and gave birth to good fortune was an extremely rare treasure land. However, very few clans dared to settle their clan on top of a volcano. The earth-shattering volcanic eruption could easily turn the clan into ashes. However, a part of the clans under the command of the Jiang clan had never been afraid of the power of this volcano. Especially a large clan like the Xia clan. Not only were they not afraid of volcanoes, they could even absorb the power of volcanoes and convert it into an endless stream of energy. There were 8 city gates in Nanjiang Prefecture. Almost every day, countless experts of the clans would enter this place through the 8 city gates. They would either settle down, trade, or seek opportunities. What countless clans yearned for the most was the famous Spirit Flame Academy in Nanjiang Prefecture. It was located on a hill near Nanjiang Prefecture. In the capital city, the manor lord had been an expert of the Xia clan for generations. In a magnificent and huge mansion, Ziyali sat on the huge seat of the manor lord. His eyes flickered. As the head of the Xia clan in this branch of Nanjiang Prefecture, there was no doubt about Ziyali's strength. Under the huge seat, there seemed to be one, and another. There were a total of 9 huge crimson divine dragons circling around. These tens of feet long, python-like crimson dragons were not formed by flames. They were real crimson dragons formed by the fire veins of heaven and earth. The crimson dragons circled around, and the flood dragons rotated their bodies, giving him a different kind of majesty. An unfamiliar expert of the Xia clan killed the beast Emperor Jinao with one blow. Thinking of the message he had just received from Su Du, Ziyali's expression changed. He was even more confused. The Xia clan was ranked lower among the 12 branches of the Jiang clan. It was not as prominent as the Yutai clan and the Zhurong clan. Ziyali was well aware of the experts in the Xia clan. However, he had never heard of an expert of the Xia clan called Xia Qinfeng. He was so powerful that he could defeat the beast Emperor Jinao with just a wave of his hand. Ziyali could not help but think of a secret order that the Flame Emperor's Celestial Palace had sent to the 12 palaces, halls, and mansions some time ago. Pay attention to some experts that suddenly appeared. If they could capture the enemy, the reward would be extremely generous. They could even be directly rewarded by the Flame Emperor's Celestial Palace and be promoted to Aragami. Thinking of the reward plan announced by the Flame Emperor's Celestial Palace, even Ziyali, who was the head of a division, felt his heart throbbing and burning. To reach the sky in one step and become a Aragami was a great opportunity. This Xia Qinfeng in front of him was extremely suspicious. Should I report to the Heavenly Sacred Palace and ask them to investigate? As soon as this thought arose, Ziyali immediately suppressed it and shook his head slightly. During this period, it was not that no one had reported it, but most of them were not true. After a few times, some people were even reprimanded by the 12 palaces. The reprimand of the 12 palaces was one aspect. Another aspect was that this expert was born from the Xia clan. The Xia clan was scattered on the vast plains in front of the Zhang River. Before dispersing into the plains, they occupied a vast land with a radius of millions of miles. It was not impossible to hide 1 or 2 experts from the Xia clan. At this moment, outside the main hall, a series of footsteps could be heard. A wild-looking red-clothed young woman with a gentle face walked in from outside the main hall. She walked to the front of the hall and bowed slightly. Clan leader. Looking at the swaying red-clothed young woman, Ziyali looked up with an indifferent expression. Third sister, what's the matter? The red-clothed young woman was wearing a scarlet short skirt made of snake scales. Her slender and straight legs were outlined in an astonishing manner. Her chest was tall and straight, which was very astonishing. Her appearance was extremely gentle and charming, but there was a kind of almost natural indifference to her. Looking up at Ziyali, Ziyali's beautiful pair of cold eyes flickered with a faint mist. The Spiritual Flame Academy is about to start. I wonder if the clan leader is free to attend the trial ceremony. Spiritual Flame Academy? Ziyali raised his eyebrows slightly. This word caused his attention to shift away from Qin Feng. The experts from the Spiritual Flame Academy had always been the backbone of the Xia clan's governance of the Nanzhong residence. They could be said to be the disciples of the Xia clan. To the Xia clan, attending the trial ceremony to recruit students had a greater symbolic meaning. The Xia clan also needed to gather the elites from the various clans, especially since the Xia clan did not belong to Xi Yali alone. Xi Yali spoke. "I will be there when the time comes." "All right." Xi Yali nodded and turned to leave. She did not want to stay with this cold and emotionless clan leader any longer. "Wait." At this moment, a voice came from behind. Xi Yali stopped and looked at Xi Yali, who was sitting on the golden seat. "Help me investigate someone while you're at it." Chapter 1842. Blazing Manor. This was the Nanzhong Manor, one of the mansions that was second only to the Manor Lord's office. The huge manor was built with golden red fire maple wood, and there was a hot spring inside, making it look extremely luxurious and grand. This was the Nanzhong Manor, the manor of a rather famous expert of the Xia clan, Xia Yan. Xia Yan was not as powerful as the clan leader, but he was still one of the famous elders of the Xia clan. In the center of the manor there was a volcanic pool, and pieces of red fire crystals were cast on top of it. Crimson mist rose from the volcanic pool in the center. Whoosh whoosh. There seemed to be a rolling volcano behind him. The power of the surname was the most primitive of all, but as one's cultivation deepened, the power of the surname would gradually change. Usually, it would be refined into a form or a beast, like Xi Li, whose surname power could transform into a huge crimson dragon, or even an immortal dragon god body. There were also some that could transform into objects, like the Mountain Lord of the Su clan, who was influenced by the power of the mountain range and was forged into a terrifying divine mountain. Another example was the Water Lord of the Su Water, who refined the power of the surname into a river and combined it with the Su Water, becoming the Water Lord. With the replenishment of the Su Water, it might become a flood river that connected heaven and earth, or even become the water desolate god, controlling all water. It could also be like the Guizhe, who refined it into a weapon, becoming a mighty weapon that could shatter mountains and rivers. No matter which direction it was, it would eventually be imprinted with all kinds of secret techniques, making it stronger and stronger, and even merging with the spirit to form a path of its own. Xi Yan had obtained the power of the Nanzhong Manor, and refined a volcano with the fire vein. He could control the power of the fire vein, which was extremely powerful. Just as Xi Yili received the news, Xi Yan also received the news. Expert of the Xia clan? Sitting cross-legged by the volcanic pond, the thick red fire mist emitted from the pond unceasingly. It was like a whale sucking in water for the volcano's shadow behind him. Every time it absorbed a little bit of the fire mist, the volcano's shadow would become more solid, and its temperature would rise a little bit. Xia Yan's eyes were a little gloomy. Thinking of the important matter in his heart, his eyes were filled with a hint of irritation and coldness. Why did there have to be a change just as that important matter was about to arrive? Damn you! Thinking of this, Xia Yan couldn't help but curse. When he thought of how his chess pieces had been destroyed by this expert from the Xia clan who had suddenly appeared, a nameless fire burned in his eyes. No matter how incompetent I am, I can't let him come to Nanzhong Manor. At the very least, before the general trend is completed. Xia Yan's eyes flickered and she took out the resonance conch. The Heavenly Sacred Palace was one of the 4 palaces under the Zhongshui Divine Palace. The 4 halls under the Zhongshui Divine Palace were located north and south of Zhongshui. When Xia Yan activated the same sound conch, an important figure in the 100 clans of the Jiang clan had noticed it. Combining the situation reported by Xia Yan, this high-level spy from the Qi clan instantly gave instructions to Xia Yan to calm down. At the same time, This high-level spy immediately contacted another group of chess pieces in the Jiang clan's territory near the Nanjiang mansion to attack, to ensure that the overall situation remained the same. After this adjustment, various changes immediately occurred. Above Zhongshui, huge waves surged. The thick waves were like an overturning sea, unparalleled. On the big ship, Qin Feng opened his eyes from his meditation. As he obtained more clan sacrifices, Qin Feng's understanding of the origin of the inner world became deeper. Like the surface world, the spiritual sense of the eternal heaven monarch was gradually unraveling as the inner world's suppression was released. Especially when it came to a part of his karma, many changes could be deduced in a short period of time. He could almost deduce a part of the future changes in a short period of time with just a thought. A leaf knows autumn, the cicada senses autumn before the autumn wind blows. It was difficult to describe this mysterious realm with words. Looking in the direction of the Nanjiang mansion, Qin Feng's eyes flickered with a strange light. There seemed to be a good show going on there. He could vaguely see two invisible forces that were not inferior to his starting a preliminary test and game in the Nanjiang mansion. One of the forces was vaguely stronger than him. Qin Feng could sense that it was the power of the Flame Emperor's celestial palace. It seems that the Jiang clan's god is not without enemies. His eyes flickered with a strange light. At this time, the Eternal Secret Codex had advanced further, and he had taken the opportunity to become an Eternal Heaven Monarch. Although he had not yet reached the threshold of the Eternal Divine Ancestor, Qin Feng was no longer afraid of the Flame Emperor. Perhaps he could do something. But immediately, Qin Feng shook his head. Now, there were undercurrents surging in the Jiang clan. He could vaguely see a few forces that were not inferior to the Jiang clan's god. It was better for him to hide his tracks and not show himself for the time being. He did not want to alarm these supreme wills that were in the game. But he should be able to take advantage of the situation and make a fortune. The Flame Emperor's Celestial Palace. On the floating island that Qin Feng had glanced at before. In the depths of the Celestial Palace, tens of thousands of flowers floated. Under a fiery red heavenly tree, a middle-aged emperor in a crimson robe sat cross-legged under the tree. He looked deeply at the vast territory of the Jiang clan. As the Jiang clan's god and the owner of the Flame Emperor's Celestial Palace, the Flame Emperor was worshipped by the entire Jiang clan. His every breath seemed to be one with the earth and the firmament. He had transcended time and had incredible power. In his eyes, he could vaguely see countless clans living and using the power of fire. In his eyes, he could see countless kinds of flames burning fiercely. It was as if heaven and earth were born in this intense crimson torrent. Under his gaze, the entire land occupied by the Jiang clan was filled with crimson flames, while the land occupied by the Ji clan's yellow emperor was filled with earthy yellow flames. The Qi clan, the Headhunter clan, the Rong clan, the Si clan, and the Ying clan had other colors. Among the surrounding clans, his Jiang clan, the Ji clan occupied by the yellow emperor, the Si clan occupied by Emperor Yu, and the Ying clan occupied by the Sage Emperor were the strongest. The Qi clan was slightly second, followed by the Headhunter clan, the Rong clan, and a few smaller clans. The clans occupied land and each had their own clan aura. For example, the Jiang clan was of the fire attribute, and their clan aura was crimson. The Ji clan was of the earth attribute, and their clan aura was earthy yellow. Emperor Yu and the Sage Emperor were of the water attribute, and their clan aura was black. Although they were both black, due to their own unique characteristics, the aura they displayed was different. However, the Jiang clan's clan aura was indeed somewhat impure in the Flame Emperor's hands. It was no longer pure red, and there were traces of other colors that were hard to see with the naked eye at the edges. If he had not improved his abhijna during this period, he would not have noticed this change. This was very shocking. This meant that other clans were infiltrating the Jiang clan. Chapter 1843. The situation was like a chessboard. The Jiang clan's dragon had been vaguely surrounded and nibbled away bit by bit, waiting for the opportunity to be swallowed. The Flame Emperor looked at the Jiang clan's territory. His eyes flashed like flames as he waved his sleeve. Several streams of light flew out of the floating island from his hand and scattered all over the 12 sacred palaces under the Flame Emperor. These streams of light were like an invisible hand that began to control the chessboard. Imperceptibly, an invisible change began to take place on the chessboard. The red aura that seemed to be formed by the Jiang clan surged. He did not begin to devour the various clan auras that entered the Jiang clan's territory. Instead, he acted as if he did not notice it at all. However, in reality, an undercurrent had already been mobilized in the center of the Jiang clan. The Flame Emperor was playing a big game of chess, and the surrounding clans did not notice it. Above the Jiang River, Qin Feng also did not notice the change. However, out of caution, Qin Feng decided to wait until he saw the chessboard clearly before making his move. Therefore, he decided to stay away from the Jiang River for the time being. However, even if he wanted to leave, he would not leave voluntarily. Suddenly, Qin Feng's expression changed as he looked above the vast Jiang River. The opportunity has arrived. A glimmer of light flashed in Qin Feng's eyes. Rumble! The originally calm Jiang River suddenly had a torrent from the center. It was noon, but thick black clouds appeared above their heads. Amid the rumbling, thunder filled the sky. Why are there suddenly so many dark clouds? The noisy discussions of many sailors could be heard as they looked at the sky. Chunyu Xianxian, Luo Chang, and Ziya also looked up at the sky. The weather is unpredictable. Ziya frowned slightly. I'm afraid it's not as simple as the weather being unpredictable. Luo Chang's beautiful eyes looked above the water. As a reincarnator, coupled with the secret treasure she had obtained in Su-Du, her strength had advanced to the ancient stage. However, her powerful spiritual sense was comparable to some Archean stage expert. She could clearly sense some changes under the water. Chunyu Xianxian glanced at Luo Chang with her beautiful eyes. Although she was not convinced, she had to admit that she was inferior to Luo Chang in terms of one-on-one combat, various methods, and knowledge. It's the merfolk. Qin Feng, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stood up. Mermaid. The expressions of the three changed. Previously, I killed a merman prince in Su-Du. Now that the mermen have caught up, I'm afraid they won't let this matter rest. Qin Feng's expression was calm as he looked at the three of them. You guys follow the ship to Nanjiang Manor first. I'll stay behind to deal with these mermen. Ziya was stunned and looked at Qin Feng. Uncle Qin, could it be that you can't do anything to the merfolk with your strength? Qin Feng looked at the surface of the water and said indifferently. Of course I'm not afraid, but mermaids are a big race in Jiang River. If you get involved, it will affect your future. Ziya immediately fell silent. Even though she was only from a remote branch of the Ziya clan, Ziya knew the strength of the merfolk very well. They occupied Jiang River and the various branches of Jiang River. They could be said to be a famous clan. The merfolk's strength might not be outstanding, but their influence was definitely not to be ignored. The merfolk's race was rich in beauties. In the mansions on both sides of Jiang River, and even in several halls, many experts had beautiful merfolk concubines. The energy contained within was extremely terrifying. Seeing Ziya's expression, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with indifference. At this point, the fate between the two of them had come to an end. Ziya did not know that once she left, she would very likely lose a huge leg. Her thoughts were still on the merfolk. Seeing this, Qin Feng directly went to Jiang River and appeared above it in a flash. However, at this moment, a stream of light essence descended. Green clothes fluttered, bright eyes and white teeth. Qin Feng's gaze fell on Luo Chang. Master Qin Feng, Luo Chang is willing to fight against the merfolk army with you. Luo Cheng's beautiful eyes were calm, but there was a trace of craftiness in the depths. She was much more perceptive than Ziya. Although she did not know how strong Qin Feng was, she vaguely felt that he was very likely to be the mysterious teacher behind the wilderness god in the legends. This was a huge leg to rely on. What was a mere spiritual flame academy? Even if the best seat in the entire heavenly sacred hall was placed in front of her, compared to following this mysterious expert in front of her, she would have to think twice. In her opinion, Ziya going to Nanjong Manor was like picking up sesame seeds and throwing away a watermelon. Brother Ziya, should we, beside her? Chunyu Xianxian looked at the surface of the river and bit her pink lips. Ziya clenched her fists, somewhat hesitant. Qin Feng's strength was undoubtedly powerful. Following such a powerful existence, her gains during this period were enough to prove everything. During this period, in just half a year, he had grown from a disciple of a clan who had just awakened the power of the surname to someone who was about to enter the ancient rank. This kind of change was obvious. However, in Ziya's eyes, the Spiritual Flame Academy was extremely important. Under the influence of the clan, the Spiritual Flame Academy was practically the ultimate dream of those disciples of remote clans. Ziya glanced at Chunyu Xianxian, gritted her teeth and said, "No need. Since Uncle Qin wants us to leave, we will go directly to Nanjong Manor. The merfolk should not be able to do anything to Uncle Qin. At that time, we will wait for Uncle Qin at Nanjong Manor." Although she said this, Ziya still felt a deep sense of loss in her heart. She had a feeling that after bidding farewell to this teacher, who was both a teacher and a friend today, when they met the next day, everything would be different. Chunyu Xianxian immediately stopped talking. Ziya's words made sense. If the two of them stayed, they might only be a burden to Lord Qin Feng. The two of them had been together for a long time, and Chunyu Xianxian already had a hazy good impression of Ziya. The young girl's heart was inextricably linked to the young man. The captain of the ship and many of the sailors had already received a warning. When they learned that the merfolk were rushing over, they immediately sped up. The large ship flowed down the torrent, and in the blink of an eye, only a small black dot was left in their field of vision. Luo Cheng's beautiful eyes looked at this scene indifferently, and there was a trace of a sneer in her eyes. At this time, Ziya and Chunyu Xianxian were still a little immature. They did not see the Lord's intention to leave, and missed the opportunity to hug his thigh for no reason. Only she, who had been reborn once, could vaguely sense how thick this golden thigh was. Standing above the torrent, Qin Feng stood with his hands behind his back. His expression was indifferent, as if he did not notice Luo Cheng's little thoughts. Boom! Just a moment after the ship left, a torrent of water suddenly surged into the sky. Several surging waves of water swept up dozens of feet, drowning the two of them. Chapter 1844. As the huge wave approached her, Luo Cheng's nerves tensed up almost subconsciously. She looked at Qin Feng uneasily. The ancient stage expert's use of power was close to the peak. They began to touch the mysterious spiritual realm, developing their own power and entering a new realm. This realm was directly connected to the mysteries. Mastering the mysteries was the key to the desolate god realm. However, facing the torrent and huge waves that were almost at the calamity level, Luo Cheng felt that her body was like a small boat that could capsize at any time under the surging torrent. She had no power to resist. Qin Feng looked at the depths of the water. There were countless undercurrents that merged together and wrapped around the two of them. That huge undercurrent contained the power of 1,000 caddies. Even if the golden turtle was a terrifying beast emperor in the water, it would not be able to escape easily. As a foreign race in the water, the mermaid race was indeed blessed with the ability to control water. However, Qin Feng's expression did not change. He stood on the water surface. "Suppress." He softly spat out a word. It was as if the heavens and the earth were splitting open. The sky and the earth merged, and a terrifying force was born. Immediately, the expressions of the countless mermen who were controlling the water at the bottom of the water changed drastically. They felt as if their bodies were rooted to the ground. No matter what they did, they could not pull the two figures above the water. There is indeed a way. Feeling the changes in her body, Luo Shang's eyes lit up as she looked at Qin Feng. That terrifying pulling force was no longer able to shake her body. This mysterious expert was indeed as strong as she had imagined. There were at least thousands of mermaid experts at the bottom of the water. Even if the Water Lord encountered this force, he would be suppressed. Yet, this expert was able to suppress this undercurrent so easily. At the bottom of the water, on top of a colossal creature, there was a handsome king wearing aqua-blue robes, a hairband, and many jewels. He looked at this scene with cold eyes. Feeling the strain of the tens of thousands of mermaid experts surround him, his eyes darkened. He is actually so powerful. No wonder he could kill the Golden Turtle Emperor and ruin my plans. His eyes were cold as he raised his head. However, since you dared to spoil my plans, I'll make you pay with your life today. At the next moment, a furious bellow burst out from his mouth, and a surge of water light flew out from his body. It merged into the water current that was holding down the several tens of thousands of merfolk warriors like a flood, flying toward the surface of the river. Be careful! Luo Chang couldn't help but cry out involuntarily when she felt the surging and terrifying power that was enough to stir up a vast ocean. Petty tricks. Qin Feng's gaze was indifferent from the beginning to the end. He looked at the bottom of the water as if he was looking through the water and saw the mermaids who were 10,000 feet below. Qin Feng originally wanted to release a bolt of lightning to teach these mermaids hiding in the depths of the water a lesson. The might of the eternal true thunder was unparalleled. When the thunderbolt struck down, not to mention the mermaids and mermen under the water, even the entire Zhang River would faint. But this thought was quickly suppressed. According to the laws of heaven and earth of the inner world, only experts above the Rage God level could comprehend the second profound mystery or even multiple profound mysteries. Although he was no longer afraid of the Flame Emperor, as a qualified mastermind behind the scenes, he naturally couldn't reveal his whereabouts. With a thought, he stretched out a hand, and a bright red flame surged out of his palm. In an instant, a crow's cry resounded through the clouds, shaking the Zhang River. Zhang River Manor. As a high-level water system that gathered dozens of branch water veins, the Zhang River had a high-level water manor that was completely superior to the Su Shui Manor. Naturally, there was an even more powerful water lord overseeing it. When Jiang Huai led the mermaids to attack, it alarmed the Zhang River Manor water lord. As an extremely important force under the Zhang River Manor, the mermaids had a very close relationship with the Zhang River Manor water lord. There were many beautiful mermaids in the water lord's manor. The Zhang River Manor water lord knew that the mermaids were plotting against the Su Shui Manor and had sent out the Golden Turtle Emperor. However, what was surprising was that the mermaids' plan that they were confident in actually went bankrupt because of an accident. At this moment, it wasn't just the Zhang River Manor water lord. In the manor, some ancient foreign clan emperors looked up in shock. It was as if they had met their natural enemy in the depths of their souls. Then, the foreign clan emperors saw dozens of suns suddenly appear in the sky above the Zhang River. Almost instantly, a terrifying soul-scorching power was born. Then, under the shocked gazes of the foreign clan emperors and the experts of the clans on both sides of the river, they saw dozens of extremely handsome divine birds. The great sun golden crow? At such a close distance, Luo Chang's eyes widened as she looked at the dozen or so golden-feathered divine birds in the sky. Is this the Lord's surname? Luo Chang muttered as she looked at the dozens of extremely beautiful golden crows. Luo Chang couldn't help but be infatuated. The dozen golden crows were simply too beautiful. They were even more beautiful than the ones in the legend. Qin Feng glanced at Luo Cheng's expression and smiled faintly. Of course, these golden crows weren't his surname. They were just created by him blowing on them. Screech! Amidst the terrifying crows' cries, the dozens of golden crows swooped down under the horrifying gazes of the experts. In the depths of the manor, the Zhang River Manor Water Lord felt a sharp pain in his soul. His will had already completely refined a part of the Zhang River, but it was instantly cut off by a blazing power. The part of the river where the battle was taking place instantly evaporated thousands of feet. Then, through the reaction from the Zhang River, he saw with his own eyes that the dozens of terrifying golden crows rushed towards the exposed mermaids and mermen. In an instant, except for the mermaid expert Jiang Huai, the tens of thousands of mermaids and mermen were instantly roasted into fishing rods by the golden crow's incomparably high temperature. Jiang Huai, the famous ancient of the mermaid clan, wasn't any better. The dozens of golden crows swarmed him, and their sharp beaks, which were like divine weapons, pecked him full of holes. He was on the verge of death. Granduncle! At the sight of this, in a crystal palace deep in a river, the expressions of a group of experts from the mermaid clan's Jiang clan changed drastically. Many pairs of blue eyes stared at Qin Feng with crimson-red eyes. In the end, a large patch of golden flames fell. Under the sharp beaks of the dozens of golden crows, Jiang Huai was torn into pieces. Under the golden flames, he turned into a wisp of smoke and completely dissipated. This included the golden turtle he was sitting on, which wasn't inferior to the golden turtle Qin Feng had killed back then. After killing these mermaid experts, the dozens of golden crows flew back under Qin Feng's control and landed on his shoulder. Under the fearful gazes of the experts, the dozens of golden crows disappeared into his body one after another. Looking at the casual figure, at this moment, the world seemed to have completely lost all sound. Even though there were many gazes filled with bone-deep hatred, no one dared to make a move at this moment. Chapter 1845. After killing the mermaid experts blocking his way, Qin Feng set his sights on his next destination, the Heavenly Sacred Prefecture, where the Heavenly Sacred Hall was located. If the Nanzhong Prefecture was the center of the southern part of the Zhang River, then the Heavenly Saint Prefecture was the center of the northern part of the Zhang River, the Ji River, and the Qing River. It was located in the middle of 4 or 5 sub-prefectures. It was a very important location. The clans surrounding it were more than 100 times the size of the Nanzhong Prefecture. It spanned tens of thousands of miles, and could be said to be the gathering place of all officials. After learning that the Nanzhong Prefecture had become a region where several emperors and dragons were fighting, Qin Feng had been looking for a place to settle down. Except for some prefectures on the same level as the Nanzhong Prefecture, the Heavenly Sacred Prefecture under the Zhang River Divine Palace fell into his consideration. Compared to the other prefectures, the Heavenly Sacred Prefecture was superior. The Shudu Prefecture could be said to be the capital of 100 mounts, receiving the worship of hundreds of clans of a certain size. The Nanzhong Prefecture could be called the capital of 1,000 mount. The capital of 1,000 mounts surrounded the center of thousands of clans of a certain size, receiving the worship of these clans. There were many capitals of 100 mounts in the clans, like stars in the sky, scattered across the vast land ruled by the Jiang clan. This was the most basic capital of a clan under the pyramid. The capital of 1,000 mounts was slightly inferior, but there were still many capitals like the Nanzhong Prefecture. They directly ruled over many of the capitals of 100 mounts under their command. The Heavenly Sacred Prefecture could be called the capital of 1,000 mount. The capital of 1,000 mounts was undoubtedly very important. Even in the Jiang clan, each capital of 1,000 mounts was extremely important. He usually had dozens of them under his command, and even more than that of 1,000 mounts, and even more 100 mounts. Even an existence like Qin Feng would feel incomparably envious when he saw the offerings that he had received. As for whether or not the heavenly sacred prefecture was willing to give them worship, Qin Feng didn't care. Unwilling? After beating them up, he didn't believe that the experts of the heavenly sacred prefecture wouldn't learn their lesson. On the spot. Suddenly, Qin Feng's expression changed slightly, and he looked into the depths of the Jiang River. At the place where Jiang Huai was turned into smoke by the golden crow's flames, a pile of relics fell onto the surface of the water and drifted with the waves. Luo Chang reacted quickly. Her body emitted a burst of green light, which instantly transformed into a dozen green vines that shot out from her slender, jade-like hands and wrapped around the relics that were about to be swept away by the current. Something that could withstand the golden crow divine fire and not be incinerated was definitely not a simple treasure. 3 treasures appeared in front of them along with the green vines. Looking at these 3 treasures, Qin Feng's expression was slightly surprised. 3 treasures. A token, a piece of iron shining with a blue luster, and a bead. The token was black in color, and there were complicated patterns on it. It had been taken from Jiang Huai's body after his death, and it should have been hidden in the depths of his soul. With just a glance, Qin Feng understood. This was most likely a command token of a certain power. That Jiang Huai was most likely a spy sent by one of the clans that had infiltrated the Jiang clan. The 3 treasures floated in the air. Since Qin Feng and Luo Chang could see them, the others could also see them. Not good, Jiang Huai was exposed. Ordinary experts of the Water Mansion didn't know what the black token was, but some spies hiding in the dark knew it clearly. In a flash, many people's pupils shrank, and they knew that it was not good. As for a portion of the clan experts, they were deep in thought. At first glance, they knew that this token was not ordinary. Seeing the black token, Luo Chang's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of shock. As a reborn person, she had experienced the dark period after the Jiang family, so this token looked like the token of the Qi clan. Under her influence, the Jiang family had been plundered by the Qi clan many times. Many territories had fallen into the hands of the Qi clan, and many clans had been reduced to vassals or slaves. I didn't expect the Qi clan to know so much about the Jiang family. Should I find a way to remind the upper echelons of the Jiang family? Her heart shook violently, but Luo Chang's expression didn't change, as if she didn't know the origin of this token. Qin Feng looked at the black token. This thing was a time bomb. If ordinary people carried it with them, they didn't know when they would be in big trouble. With a wave of his sleeve, the black token flew out and went straight into the depths of the Jiang River. Seeing this, many people's expressions flickered quickly. Immediately, several forces sent their capable subordinates to snatch this thing. The Water Mansion was suspicious, and the other side was a chess piece of the Qi clan. These chess pieces were worried that the black token would be seen by others. They were afraid of being exposed, so they desperately wanted to snatch it. The 2 sides fought fiercely under the water, but for fear of angering Qin Feng and Luo Chang, they could only fight while carrying the black token. Seeing Qin Feng's actions, Luo Chang's eyes flashed, and her expression was a little strange. She even suspected that Qin Feng had noticed the existence of the Qi clan. Qin Feng glanced at the fierce battle under the water, and his expression was indifferent. His eyes fell on the second treasure. The blue treasure was a piece of divine iron. A piece of precious riverside divine iron. It should be a small piece of innate divine iron that was formed under the Jiang River after being washed by the water veins for billions of years. The Jiang River was huge and extraordinary. Many ordinary water systems originated from the Jiang River. It meandered like a river and gave birth to many clans and tribes in the two-river basin. But it was still surprising that it could produce innate divine iron. As long as it was slightly nurtured and forged, this innate divine iron could be turned into a good innate divine weapon. Luo Cheng's watery eyes also fell on this piece of divine iron, and her beautiful eyes were slightly moved. She was also a person who knew what was good for her. The clan experts, when cultivating their surname power to a certain extent, needed some strange items to complete the transformation. If they wanted to turn their surname power into a divine beast, such as the Golden Crow, they would need to visualize the Golden Crow god and obtain a strange item from the Golden Crow. Only then could they use it as a form and finally have the body and soul to establish a supreme foundation. And if they wanted to nurture their surname power into a divine weapon, they would need an artifact like this divine iron in front of them as an artifact embryo and a basis for carving. After thousands of tempering, nurturing, and experiencing the 4 seasons of water and fire, the Great Void would finally take shape and turn into a supreme killing weapon. And as an artifact embryo, the better the quality, the greater the potential of the killing weapon. And an innate divine iron like the Riverside Divine Iron was undoubtedly the best material. Luo Cheng's eyes flickered. This piece of innate divine iron was of the water attribute. It could be completely refined into an unparalleled sword weapon like the Ice Soul Divine Weapon or the Glacier Divine Weapon. Chapter 1846. The only pity was that it wasn't of the water element. However, it could be taken to the clan's black market and exchanged for divine wood of the same level. Luo Cheng's watery eyes were slightly envious. Good stuff. Qin Feng waved his sleeve and put the divine metal into it. Then, his gaze fell on the third treasure. It was a pearl. It was exactly the same as the wood spirit pearl in the 9 spirit pearl. The only difference was that the wood spirit bead emitted a majestic dark green light, while this bead emitted a majestic light blue light that resembled the ocean. The water spirit pearl in the 9 spirit pearl. Luo Cheng's beautiful eyes lit up as she looked at the pearl. She actually found the water spirit pearl in the 9 spirit pearl in the Zhang River. Luo Cheng wasn't the only one who discovered the water spirit pearl. On the other side, in the depths of the underwater palace, the Zhang River Water Lord was a knowledgeable person. He could tell at a glance that the water spirit pearl was extraordinary. Jiang Huai actually has a treasure of this level? In the magnificent palace, the Zhang River Water Lord clenched his teeth so hard that they almost broke. Although he could not recognize the true origin of the pearl, when he sensed the natural suppressive force the pearl exerted on him, he knew that it was definitely a treasure of a higher grade than an innate spirit pearl like the sea calming pearl. When he thought about how Jiang Huai had actually hidden it from him and secretly stole such a precious treasure, an indescribable rage rose in the Zhangshui Water Lord's heart. If Jiang Huai was still alive, he would have cut him into pieces. In his anger, the Zhang River Water Lord looked at the floating pearl. His eyes flickered and turned into an icy coldness. "I can't not fight for such a treasure." A faint and cold voice resounded in the hall. A stream of light flashed and disappeared from the throne. The death of a subordinate wasn't worth it. He had to fight to the death with an extremely powerful expert of the same level. However, if there was a piece of Xiantian iron and a Xiantian spirit pearl, the Zhang River Water Lord was completely tempted. Even if he had to pay a price. As the Water Lord who controlled the Zhang River, he was very confident in his strength. Moreover, water suppressed fire. On the surface of the water, Qin Feng was slightly surprised when he saw the water spiritual pearl that had suddenly appeared. He did not expect that the powerhouse from the Mermaid clan would have such a treasure even though he was weak. The 9 joint pearls contained a great opportunity and a great secret. The 9 spiritual pearls were the key to opening that opportunity. A hint of a smile flashed across his eyes, but it soon fluctuated slightly. His extremely powerful spiritual sense sensed that an invisible surging force was rushing toward them from the depths of the Zhang River. At the same time, an invisible force above the water suddenly isolated all the space around Zhang Shui, forming a special domain space. The torrential flood was like a great river with no beginning or end. It was abnormally terrifying. Deity territory. Zhang Shui Waterlord made his move. Although this wasn't the surface world, the power of the divine domain was indeed the same. As the creator of the divine domain, he was the one who made the rules of the world. He was the ruler of life and death. This is my territory, and I call the shots. This was also one of the strongest aspects of the Mountain Lord and the Water Lord, especially the restraint of the fire element. Under the suppression of the deity territory, it was multiplied several times. Under the huge gap created by the two sides, ordinary powerhouses of the same level only needed a few moves to completely suppress them. Qin Feng's expression did not change. He looked at the water spiritual pearl in front of his chest and smiled faintly. He stretched out a hand and flicked a pale golden brilliance into the water spiritual pearl in front of him. In an instant, the water spiritual pearl bloomed with a sapphire blue brilliance. When the water spiritual pearl bloomed, the Zhangshui Water Lord, who was rushing over, felt an extreme uneasiness from the depths of his soul. Immediately, this uneasiness turned into horror. The blue brilliance of the water spiritual pearl flowed and instantly suppressed the Water Lord's deity territory that was born from the Zhang Shui. Under the sapphire blue brilliance, the entire Zhang Shui seemed to be frozen. At this moment, the Zhang Shui Water Lord suddenly woke up from his monstrous greed. It was as if cold water had been poured on his heated heart. Since the water spiritual pearl in front of him was a natural treasure that was superior to the Dinghai pearl, it obviously had the power to suppress the water vein. It could only be stronger than the Dinghai pearl. He thought that water could suppress fire, and had a great chance of winning. However, in front of this pearl, it was a complete joke. In an instant, the power of the entire Zhang Shui was almost completely frozen under the Lord's sapphire blue brilliance. Qin Feng waved his sleeve. The sapphire spiritual pearl was like a sharp arrow. It rolled back with a boom, cut across the water surface, and hit the Zhangshui Water Lord who was rushing over. Bang! Accompanied by a shocking scream, the Zhangshui Water Lord's chest was blown apart by the pearl. Like a rainbow piercing the sun, his divine body exploded into pieces. Blood dyed a large area of the river red. In the blink of an eye, he completely dissipated with the rising undercurrent in the river. The Zhangshui Water Lord was dead. Seeing this scene, many powerhouses of the surrounding clans were completely scared out of their wits. The Zhangshui Water Lord, a powerhouse at the peak of the Emperor stage, who used to be superior to countless clans around him, was actually dead. Then, looking at the two powerhouses on the water surface, many powerhouses of the clans avoided them as if they were snakes or scorpions. Whether it was the powerhouses of the Water Mansion or the powerhouses of the clans sent to fight for the Black Token, they all scattered in a hubbub as if they were avoiding the plague. The Water Lords of the major water systems were usually personally appointed by the Lord of the clan under the command of the Flame Emperor's Celestial Palace. The death of any Water Lord would probably attract the attention of the Lord of the clan. Killing a Water Lord, the mysterious powerhouse in front of them was probably in big trouble. Lord Qin Feng, Yu Luo Cheng's beautiful eyes stared blankly at Qin Feng. She had never thought that Qin Feng would kill a Water Lord so directly. Then, she frowned. Killing a Water Lord directly was a big trouble. Sensing Luo Cheng's incredulous gaze, Qin Feng smiled faintly. Don't be so afraid. That person is extremely cunning. Although I almost killed him, he was still alive in the end. Of course, this was the result of him deliberately showing mercy. Otherwise, the Water Lord of Zhangshui would have died even if he had 10 lives. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Feng waved his sleeve and the Water Spirit Pearl was summoned back into his hand. He's not dead? Luo Cheng's beautiful eyes widened. His body had been smashed to pieces, but he was still alive? Let's go. Let's leave this place first and study this Water Spirit Pearl. Qin Feng ignored Luo Cheng's expression. With a wave of his sleeve, A ray of light wrapped around Luo Chang, and they left on the surface of the river. In the huge water mansion, witnessing the death of the Water Lord, the Zhangshui water mansion was in chaos. In the back garden of the water mansion, the back garden was backed by a coral mountain. In the depths of the mountain, there was a pond. Outside the pond, there was a stone platform. On the stone platform, there was a huge spirit clam. At this moment, the spirit clam opened its mouth, and a strangely agile spirit clam flew out. A ray of light shot out and instantly turned into a naked baby in the cave. At this moment, the baby's face was still filled with fear. Chapter 1847. One move. Just one move was enough to shatter his divine body into pieces. Only his divine soul managed to escape. Zhangshui Water Lord also had a feeling that if that expert really wanted to kill him, his spirit wouldn't even be able to escape. The scene before his death seemed to appear in his mind. His face turned pale. Looking at his body, which was only 3 or 4 years old, Zhangshui Water Lord's eyes flashed with a hint of relief. If he hadn't made great contributions in his early years and been given a natural spirit clam by the Divine Arbiter, his spirit might have already returned to his hometown. This natural spirit clam was also born in the eye of a huge water system. For some experts who had lost their bodies, it was a second life. The spirit pearl born from the natural spirit clam could be said to be innately compatible with water. Feeling the divine power in his body gradually being reborn, Zhangshui Water Lord's eyes flashed. He saw the chaos in the Zhangshui underwater palace, but he had just been reborn from the flesh and blood of the natural spirit clam. He still needed some time to stabilize his innate body. He could only let the Zhangshui underwater palace be in chaos for a few days before he could go out and fix it. As for hunting down Qin Feng and taking back the 2 treasures, Zhangshui Water Lord had completely extinguished this idea. That mysterious expert was so terrifying that he probably already had a part of the Rage God's power. An expert of this level was already a powerful existence. He couldn't provoke him. The Zhangshui Water Lord could not even think of taking revenge. At this time, on an ordinary barren mountain around Zhangshui, Luo Chang stood at the entrance of the cave in green. Crackle! Outside the cave, it was raining heavily. Looking around, one could see green mountains everywhere. This was the difficult shore of Zhangshui. It was also a secondary clan under the Holy Prefecture. This was the territory of the Gao family. The Gao family was also one of the 12 famous clans of the Jiang family. The Gao family was the ruler of this area. It was winter to the north of Zhangshui, and early winter to the south of Zhangshui. The rain was heavy and cold, permeating the mountains. In such weather, most of the ferocious beasts were hiding in their lairs. Only the ferocious beasts that were active in the cold winter would be unusually excited. The cave that Luo Chang was standing at was extremely steep from the foot of the mountain. Standing at the cave entrance, she suddenly felt that it was too cold to stand at such a high place. It was as if she was standing at the same height as a rainy day. Luo Chang liked this kind of weather. As a wood elemental, she could directly feel the tenacity of all living things in this kind of weather. She gazed into the cave. This place was originally the nest of a large bird. Not long ago, most of that bird had entered her stomach and become a tonic. In the cave, Qin Feng sat cross-legged. At this moment, there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Obviously, he had gained something. Qin Feng had indeed gained something. After Xia had obtained the wood spirit orb from the 9 spirit orb, she had given it to him to take a look. Since it belonged to a junior, he did not refine it directly. Now that he had obtained the water spirit orb and refined it, Qin Feng realized that he had been careless in his thinking about this matter. After refining the water spirit orb, in addition to receiving a small amount of luck, he could vaguely sense the whereabouts of the other 8 spirit orbs through the water spirit orb. One of the spirit orbs was not far away. His divine consciousness could sense that it would not take long for him to find the spirit orb by following the Jiang River. It was the wood spirit orb in Zia's body. In addition, he could vaguely sense the whereabouts of the other 7 spirit orbs. As long as he followed this feeling, he believed that he would be able to find the traces of the other 7 spirit orbs. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a strange light. If he had obtained the 9 spirit orbs before he had become an eternal Heaven Lord, he would not have been able to defeat the Emperor of the Jiang clan. But now that he had become an eternal Heaven Lord, if he could obtain the 9 spirit orb support, it would be enough for him to advance further, not to mention the secrets hidden behind the 9 spirit orbs. He should have more than a 50% chance of defeating the Emperor of the Jiang clan. It seems that I need to plan carefully. With various thoughts flashing in his mind, Qin Feng instantly made a decision. Just as Qin Feng's eyes fell on the 9 spirit orbs again. The Qi clan. The word Qi was composed of mountains and insects, which very well described the current situation of the Qi clan. The Qi clan had hundreds of clans, which were distributed in the vast mountains to the south of the Jiang clan. Most of the Qi clan lived in the mountains, relying on caves and huge rocks to resist the fierce beasts in the mountains. The Qi clan was good at refining and controlling all kinds of poisonous insects. Their methods were strange. If the Headhunter clan was the king of the forest, then the Qi clan was the king of the mountains. Every adult warrior of the Qi clan was a natural hunter of the mountains. The Qi clan's nest was in the Li border, which was extremely long. The 9 most powerful clans of the Qi clan lived here, in the depths of the central Shangli Heavenly Palace. Master, I'm afraid that the people of the Flame Emperor Celestial Palace have already known something. Recently, the investigation has been very strict. All the strange experts who enter the 12 river basins have been interrogated. Some of the clan warriors sent by the Qi clan have been inexplicably detained for various reasons. I'm afraid there's a change in it. If this continues, the other group of experts who sneaked in will also be killed by them one after another. I suggest to change the plan and take action in advance. On the huge ancient throne made of pure boulders, decorated with sky-high horns, a figure sat on the stone throne. His aura was rolling, like a mountain pressing on the old man who spoke in front of the hall. Qi Wu held the snake staff, with 2 black snakes coiled around his arms and bone earrings. His face was smeared with strange oil paint, and his figure was stooped, but the aura exuding from his body was unusually high. In fact, as the great wizard of the Qi clan, Qi Wu was almost above 10,000 people and below 1 person. In terms of strength, even in the Jiang clan, there were few people who could be his opponent. As an old wizard, many Aragami in the surrounding clans suspected that this old man might have already advanced to the last of the 3 realms of Aragami. However, in front of the terrifying existence of the stone throne, this old wizard whose fierce name shook the Shifang clan was so humble. Qi Wu did not feel ashamed. The 3rd realm of Aragami might be high and mighty in other clans, and could be called the top sacred in the epics and myths. However, he knew deeply that in front of this terrifying existence on the throne, it was nothing. It was nothing at all. Every time he faced this terrifying clan god, under this terrifying aura, the old wizard felt like an ant that could be drowned at any time. On the stone throne, although the great wizard brought bad news, the terrifying existence on the stone throne did not change his expression, like an immovable demon god. However, there was a flash of light in his eyes, as if he was thinking. Chapter 1848. What made the Flame Emperor search so intensely? I'm afraid there's a secret behind it. On the stone throne, the terrifying existence's gaze changed. Of course, the Flame Emperor might have found out that the alliance was encroaching on the Jiang clan's territory. He raised his head and looked at the Grand Wizard. A cold and majestic voice sounded in the main hall. Inform the Rong clan, the Headhunter clan, and other clans to prepare for action. Yes. The Grand Wizard's eyes lit up. He bowed respectfully and immediately left the main hall. With the movement of the Qi clan, more than a dozen clans, large and small, began to move. The huge war machines began to be mobilized and gathered at the intersection of the clans and the Jiang clan. A huge chaos began to appear from the four palaces under the command of the Zhongshui Divine Palace. The divine palaces bordering the clans were the first to be affected. Undercurrents were surging. It was as if a few undercurrents had suddenly entered a body of water, stirring the water into a mass of chaos. This was especially true for the Heavenly Sacred Hall, Heavenly Accumulation Hall, Heavenly Bull Hall, and Southern Sky Hall that were subordinate to the Zhongshui Divine Palace near the Zhongshui Divine Palace. Within a short period of time, several secondary thousand mounts were seized by the spies of more than 10 clans. Large swaths of clans and tribes were severed, forcibly declaring their independence from the Jiang clan. In addition to the Zhongshui Divine Palace, there were also many clans in the Martial Arts Divine Palace and the Lu Yi Divine Palace. Some of the 1,000 mounts were controlled by force and separated from the Jiang clan. Other than the 1,000-mount capital, there were even more 100-mount clan capital that had been usurped. This included the southern Zhongshui Divine Palace, which was at the center of the storm of war between the Alliance and the Jiang clan. The Jiang clan was not a pushover. While the Jiang clan was investigating, the upper echelons of the Jiang clan had already noticed that the other clans were meditating. During this time, they had secretly sent people to investigate. In a short time after these clans' capitals were seized, the 3 divine palaces immediately reacted. In a short time, groups of experts emerged and appeared in the 1,000 mounts and 100 mounts that were the most severely affected. They mobilized the experts of the various clans and stepped forward one after another. They took back the major capitals in a short time. In addition, the Flame Emperor Celestial Palace had also issued many wartime orders at once to control the situation as soon as possible. Otherwise, the situation would have deteriorated. The Qi clan, the Headhunting clan, the Rong clan, the Yongmen clan and the other clans were all shocked by the rapid reaction of the Jiang clan. The Jiang clan was much more powerful than he had imagined. But the various races were not afraid. The higher-ups of the Alliance had long been prepared for such a situation. Since he couldn't continue with his sneak attacks, he could only attack head-on. More and more powerful cultivators from the Alliance entered the Jiang clan's territory from the intersection of the various clans and the Jiang clan, beginning their official invasion. Among the Alliance, in terms of strength, the Qi clan and the Rong clan were naturally the strongest. Therefore, these 2 clans occupied a large area of the Jiang clan's territory. The battle had been going on in the territory of the Jiang clan. The battlefield extended for 1,000,000 miles, tearing a few giant wounds on the territory of the Jiang clan. On the battlefield, cultivators of the clans were dying at every moment. Their clans were being captured by the Alliance. If the Jiang clan were to fight one-on-one, neither the most powerful Jiang clan nor the Rong clan would be a match for the Jiang clan. But when more than 10 clans of various sizes joined forces, even the powerful Jiang clan would find it very difficult to deal with them. In the Yen Emperor's Celestial Palace, Father, the Qi clan, the Rong clan, the Headhunting clan, the Yongmen clan, the Qiangsang clan, Gaoxin clan, Yoyu clan, and Ichi clan are too powerful. Although the 12 godly palaces have joined the battle, we still can't control the situation. Although the cultivators of our clans have fought to the death, and many clan capitals have changed hands several times, there have been many casualties. Many places have begun to retreat. Among the 12 godly palaces, more than half of the Zhongshui Godly Palace has been destroyed. With the advance of the Alliance, the situation of the Wushu Godly Palace and the Lui Godly Palace is not optimistic. The few large clans around us that haven't made a move yet, the Qi clan, the Ji clan, the Shang clan, and the Ying clan are already ready to make a move. Father, please make a plan soon. In front of the huge crimson godly tree, there was a handsome young man in a fiery red robe with his hair tied up. He had inherited part of the Flame Emperor's kingly aura and looked extremely noble, like a young overlord. In fact, his status in the Jiang clan was indeed noble. The Flame Emperor had many children in his life, and many of them were crown princes and princesses who had achieved success in their cultivation. According to the rules of the heavenly palaces, only those who had cultivated the Huangshan body could be called crown princes or princesses. Ordinary children could only aim for the titles of prince or princess. Some of the more talented ones could suppress a region and become crown princes with real power. The red-robed young man in front of him was also unusually eye-catching among the many crown princes. Crown Prince Yanju. He was the most powerful among the crown princes after the Flame Emperor, and was also the most likely person to become the next Flame Emperor. At this moment, the flames on his body were like a dragon. These were not ordinary flames, not the fire of the earth, not the fire of the sky, and not the ordinary spiritual fire or divine fire. He was like the sun in the sky, unparalleled like the sun. Looking at the young man in front of him, the Flame Emperor's eyes carried a slight smile. He was undoubtedly very satisfied with this eldest son in front of him. He was at the peak of the third level of the Huangshan realm, and had already gathered 9 occult mysteries. This eldest son had already found his own path, and would definitely be able to break through to the Eternal Emperor realm in the future. He only needed to wait for the position of Emperor in the clan to logically reach the same height as the Flame Emperor in the shortest time possible. When he opened his eyes, it seemed as if there were flames burning in them. A faint but dignified voice sounded in the fiery red forest. "Zhu Yan, what do you think our clan should do? Was this a consideration?" Zhu Yan's expression changed slightly. He raised his head and met the gaze in the depths of his eyes, a bright light flashing in them. "I think we can prepare in 2 ways. First, we can mobilize the experts in the clan and focus on attacking the clans of the Alliance. Then, we can send people to try to rope in some of the smaller clans. Those smaller clans are mostly fence-sitters. Even if we can't make them turn against us, we can at least delay their attacks and buy us some time to defeat the other clans. Send out envoys to contact the Ji clan, the Ing clan, and the Ji clan. These clans are related to our clan by marriage, and persuade them to send troops. At the very least, we have to reduce the pressure on Father." Yanju raised his head, his gaze somewhat solemn. Although he had yet to ascend to the Eternal Emperor realm, he was only half a step away from it. His powerful spiritual senses could clearly sense that the sky outside the Flame Emperor's celestial palace was currently filled with dense clouds. Although he could not see it directly, he could sense that an extremely powerful enemy had set their sights on the Flame Emperor's celestial palace. The Flame Emperor needed allies now. Chapter 1849. Obviously, the Qi clan, the Rong clan, and the emperors behind the various clans had their eyes on the Flame Emperor's celestial palace. A good tiger could not defeat a pack of wolves. Among the major clans, I think we should consider the Ji clan first. Yanju's expression flickered as he spoke. Negotiations are based on equal status. Now that the Flame Emperor's celestial palace is targeted by the alliance of clans, I'm afraid they are behind it. The Flame Emperor shook his head slightly, his eyes indifferent. This, Yanju opened his eyes with a shocked expression. "How could they?" the Flame Emperor said indifferently. "There's nothing impossible about it. Everyone is interested in profit. The Jiang clan has been expanding too quickly these years. The entire Mountain Sea 1 colony is only this big. Unless they are willing to be annexed by the Jiang clan or retreat to the Mountain Sea 2 colony, a colony will eventually be unified one day." Yanju's expression was slightly unpleasant. In the Mountain Sea, every colony was extremely precious. These colonies were the lifeblood of the clans. If they were lost, not only would it be difficult to improve their cultivation, but survival would also become a problem. He knew that not every colony could support the survival of the clans. Many colonies had extreme environments or were simply a paradise for ferocious beasts. Only God knew how much the Jiang clan had paid in order to establish the Mountain C1 colony. Then what should we do? Yen Ju's eyes were filled with a trace of worry. After hearing the Flame Emperor's words, he realized that the situation was more dangerous than he had imagined. At the same time, Yen Ju was a little nervous. As the most powerful clan in this colony, the Jiang clan had never encountered such a dangerous situation since he was born. Seeing Yen Ju's expression, the Flame Emperor smiled and said gently, "Don't worry. The Flame Emperor's celestial palace is not a pushover. Even if the Jiang clan is defeated, I can drag a few of them down with me. For the time being, they will only send their subordinates to test us. You go and prepare first. As for reinforcements, I already have some ideas." Speaking of reinforcements, a strange look flashed across the Flame Emperor's eyes. He remembered the foreign aura that had flashed across the Mountain C1 colony not long ago. He was now certain that it was definitely a wild emperor from outside. What was a wild emperor? It was an emperor without his own clan. He had originally planned to suppress or drive it away, but now some ideas appeared in the Flame Emperor's mind. The Ji clan. The 12 branches of the Ji Yu Qi Ji Ting Bai Ren Sun Ji Bai Bai and E. On the banks of the Wei River, in the ancestral land of the Sun tribe, there were countless nests. This was a huge silkworm forest. It was a crimson silkworm forest, as red as the sun. In a nest-like treehouse on a huge fire mulberry tree near the center, a beautiful woman dressed in colorful clothes opened her beautiful eyes from her cultivation. A 7-colored brilliance circulated around her. There was a massive aura within her body that she was forcefully suppressing. This aura was extremely majestic, and even if a trace of it leaked out, it could easily destroy countless worlds. Of the chi of chi will, she will clan blood bloodline clan, and of. Sensing the condensation of the birth chart, the multicolored woman's eyes turned sharp like a sword that could tear through the heavens. Pangu Saint Emperor, Man Wang Saint Emperor, Annihilation General, Gantian Demon Lord. As she muttered these names, the 7-colored light in her eyes turned into flames. This multicolor-robed woman was none other than the former master of the Glaze heavenly region, Holy Lord Glaze. With the help of the Sun clan's branch, she advanced step by step and climbed to the top of the Sun clan's main branch in a short period of time. The speed of his advancement was so fast that it left others flabbergasted. Her current identity was the concubine of one of the Aragami from the Sun clan. Of course, the Aragami who coveted her beauty had been completely controlled by her and had been reduced to a puppet. Next, as long as I enter the Yellow Emperor's celestial palace and obtain the sacrifices of the 12 branches of the Ji clan, or even all the clans under them, I will be able to restore my peak strength and even break through to the 3rd level of the Eternal Realm. Colored Glaze Holy Lord's eyes flashed with ambition. Now that she had received the Sun clan's offerings, she could feel that the pull of the inner world on her had been reduced by 50 to 60%. She could imagine that if she could obtain the offerings of the clans on the land of the Ji clan, she could use it to leave the inner world and return to the surface world. At the thought of being able to return to the surface world to take revenge, Saint Lord Colored Glaze's eyes turned cold. After coming out of seclusion, Colored Glaze Holy Lord quickly learned about the situation of the Jiang clan. The Jiang clan is in chaos? Colored Glaze Holy Lord's beautiful eyes changed slightly on the fiery red mulberry leaf futon in the center of the nest. As intelligent as she was, she immediately sensed that this was an opportunity. If the Jiang clan was in chaos, the alliance of clans would take the opportunity to expand their territory. Faced with such great pressure from the alliance of clans, the Jiang clan might not be able to continue. Thus, Colored Glaze Holy Lord had several advantageous choices. She could make a fortune from this and use it to break through to the third level of the Eternal Realm. Colored Glaze Holy Lord now had two choices. One was to persuade the Sun clan to send troops to plunder the Jiang clan and gain merits. She would stand out and enter the upper level of the Yellow Emperor's celestial palace. The second choice was to join the Jiang clan's side. One could imagine that the Flame Emperor of the Jiang clan was currently facing enemies from all sides, especially the suppression of the emperors of the various clans. The Colored Glaze Holy Master could definitely use this as an opportunity to join the Jiang clan's camp and receive the Jiang clan's worship. Both of these plans had a lot of room for maneuver. Colored Glaze Holy Lord's eyes flickered, but she found it difficult to make a choice. She instinctively leaned towards the second choice. However, it wasn't easy for her to build such a foundation in the Ji clan. Colored Glaze Holy Lord was reluctant to give up, especially when she had already obtained a portion of the Sun clan's profit. However, Colored Glaze Holy Lord soon made a choice. She decided to work together. She would temporarily create a doppelganger to guard the Sun clan and protect her current achievements. Her original body would go to the Jiang clan to meet the Jiang clan's Flame Emperor and seek an alliance to obtain the offerings of the Jiang clan. With this two-pronged approach, she would be the winner no matter which side had a problem. After making the decision, Colored Glaze Holy Lord immediately set off. She found an opportunity to create a doppelganger. Her original body set off from the Sun clan, passing through the territories of several large clans and heading towards the Jiang clan. In the cave in the Gao clan's territory, after refining the water spirit pearl, Qin Feng also sensed the alliance of clans' actions through the Gao clan. At the same time, he also saw an opportunity to obtain the fate of the Jiang clan. Chapter 1850. Fishing with the current was like harvesting chestnuts amidst chaos. Qin Feng was an expert at this. Now that the Jiang clan was besieged and the sovereigns had set their sights on the Flame Emperor's celestial palace, this was the perfect time to take over. However, Qin Feng had another option. He could join the Qi clan, the Rong clan, or some other alliance and take the opportunity to take over some of the Jiang clan's clans. However, Qin Feng didn't want to take this path until the very end. Farming seemed grand, but it would take too long. He didn't know when it would be enough to support the ascension to the eternal sacred ancestor realm. Farming was better than picking up the ready-made ones. Although he'd set his sights on the Jiang clan, Qin Feng didn't act immediately. Qin Feng knew very well that now wasn't the time to get involved. As the saying went, better to add flowers to embroidery than to provide timely assistance. Before the sovereigns gave the Flame Emperor a good beating, Qin Feng wouldn't be able to show how precious he was. But before that, I have to increase my strength. Qin Feng stretched out a hand, and a spirit orb glowing with sapphire blue light appeared in his palm. Each of the 9 spirit pearls was comparable to the luck of 1 or 2 regions. If he could obtain all 9 of them, he would be able to obtain all 9 of them. If he could get all of them, it would be enough to greatly increase his strength. Right now, he'd only just stepped into the eternal Heavenly Lord realm. If he could get the 9 spirit orb, he'd be able to reach the peak of that realm in a short time. This 9 spirit pearl contained a mighty power, and it also contained some extremely mysterious and inconceivable mysteries. Qin Feng even had a trace of hope. Perhaps he could advance to the eternal sacred ancestor realm even without the Jiang clan's offerings. Let's go. Grabbing Luo Chang, Qin Feng sped out of the Gao clan's territory like a gust of wind. Luo Chang didn't resist. Feeling her body fly through the wind, her eyes flashed with surprise. Even a cultivator at the great circle of wind profound mysteries couldn't fly at such a terrifying speed. Obviously, this confirmed some of the guesses in her mind. A rage god. Obviously, from her point of view, this mysterious expert must be an extremely powerful origami. the wind howled, and in the blink of an eye, he had traversed hundreds of thousands of miles. The two of them had already left the range of the heavenly sacred hall. They flew downstream of the Jiang River, and appeared at the border between the Jiang clan and a small clan. The border area was a huge barren mountain range, which seemed to stretch over 1,000,000 miles. It stood tall and lofty. It was hard to imagine that a barren mountain range could be so majestic. Looking at this mountain range, Luo Chang was stunned for a moment. She looked at Qin Feng with a look of disbelief. Rushu Mountains. This was the territory of a sizable clan, the Sea clan. The Sea clan was also one of the clans in the invading alliance. This clan worshipped the power of metal, and the power of the Sea clan was mainly awakened with the power of metal, or all kinds of divine weapons. Luo Chang had a deep impression of the Sea clan because in her memories, during the later stages of the war between the Alliance and the Jiang clan, a very famous treasure had appeared in the Rushu Mountains where the Sea clan was located. That treasure was the gold spirit pearl of the 9 spirit pearls. The Rushu Mountains looked barren, but in fact they contained all kinds of rich mineral veins, including dozens of spirit ores. With the help of this pearl, the Sea clan even stepped into the realm of a large clan from a small clan in one fell swoop. They prospered for a time. The Sea clan leader, Sea Chiu, also used this pearl to become the Gold Emperor. The Sea clan was known as the Gold Clan and was incomparably prominent. It was not until the Gold Emperor was destroyed and the Gold Spirit Pearl was taken away by a god that the legend of the Gold Clan came to an end. Could it be that he was also reborn? How did he know there was a Gold Spirit Pearl here? Luo Chang looked at Qin Feng with round eyes. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the majestic mountain range beneath his feet. Of course, he was not a clairvoyant who knew there was a gold spirit pearl here. He found this place with the help of the water spirit pearl based on the resonance between the 9 spirit pearls in his body. His eyes flashed as he glanced around. His body turned into a pale golden flow and burrowed into the ground. A moment later, he turned into a beam of golden light and shot out of the ground. When he reappeared, there was a spirit pearl the size of a goose egg in his hand that was swirling with golden light. The faint golden light was incomparably heavy and contained an unparalleled sharpness that could cut through the heavens. It really is a gold spirit pearl. Luo Chang almost could not help but exclaim. In the end, she forcibly suppressed the shock in her heart. After casually refining the gold spirit pearl, Qin Feng felt that the eternal life chart in his body seemed to have been injected with a shot of cardiac stimulant, increasing the fortune of heaven and earth by a lot. At the same time, the gold precepts of heaven and earth were being continuously analyzed by him. It would not be long before he could completely comprehend them and master them into a new precepts of heaven and earth. This was equivalent to having another life. After casually storing the gold spirit pearl into his body, Qin Feng ignored the expression of the girl in green. He looked in a direction, grabbed her, and turned into a beam of light that flew away. Luo Chang's beautiful eyes could not help but have a strange look as she was being carried by Qin Feng. Looking in the direction they were flying, her heart felt heavy. It seemed to be the direction of another spirit pearl. The girl did not know why, but she suddenly felt very depressed. It was as if she felt that something that belonged to her was being taken away by someone else. One had to know that the whereabouts of the 9 spirit pearl was related to her future plans to a certain extent. She had originally planned to find the 9 spirit pearls one by one after she had succeeded in her cultivation. Then, she would use them to cultivate to Deshang, enter the upper echelons of the clan, and strive for the legendary realm. Now, her entire plan was probably going to be ruined. As a reincarnated person, seeing the various treasures that were related to her future being taken away by someone else, this feeling Qin Feng's flying speed was extremely fast. In a short period of time, another 2 spirit pearls fell into his hands. They were the Earth Spirit Pearl and the Thunder Spirit Pearl. The 9 spirit pearls consisted of the metal, wood, water, fire, and earth spirit pearls, as well as the wind, lightning, yin, and yang spirit pearls. The earth spirit pearl was in the hands of the leader of a small clan under the wild deer divine palace. It was the clan's most precious treasure. That small clan clearly knew its value. They had hidden the earth spirit pearl deeply. Only the clan leader of the clan was able to detect the existence of this spirit pearl. However, it was clear that they had encountered a robber like Qin Feng who knew everything about them. They did not have any ability to resist, and were robbed of their treasures. The thunder spirit pearl was an ownerless item. It was hidden in the nest of an ancient bird emperor. It was a golden phoenix, and Qin Feng had stolen it from its nest. At this point, 4 spirit pearls had fallen into Qin Feng's hands. Among the 4 spirit pearls, the one that was most useful to Qin Feng was undoubtedly the thunder spirit pearl. Chapter 1851. With the thunder spirit pearl, Qin Feng's comprehension of the lightning laws of heaven and earth had improved by leaps and bounds. Thanks to this, Qin Feng had reached the 6th level of the Eternal Secret Codex, becoming one with the universe. He'd reached the heavens in a single step. Although there was only one level between the 6th and 5th levels of the Eternal Secret Codex, the difference was like a chasm between heaven and earth. Qin Feng, at the 5th level of the Eternal Realm, had entered the Eternal Lord Realm. Qin Feng, at the 6th level of the Eternal Realm, had surpassed the veteran Eternal Lord Realm, and was more than capable of protecting himself against the Eternal Sacred Ancestor. The Eternal Sacred Ancestor was an extremely powerful existence. The Eternal Sacred Ancestor had formed the eternal fate, and the laws of heaven and earth he'd mastered were embedded in the depths of the void, the source of all Taos. He possessed the power of immortality and indestructibility. To a certain extent, the Eternal Sacred Ancestor was worthy of the word sacred. In the endless chaos and the void, he was immortal and indestructible. He could only be suppressed, not killed. He possessed part of the power of a true sacred. However, the void had many dimensions, and the Eternal Sacred Ancestor could only be a one-dimensional true sacred. Once the Great Tribulation of the Chaos Epoch occurred and the dimensions collapsed, the Eternal Sacred Ancestor wouldn't be able to escape. Regardless, there weren't many existences like the Eternal Sacred Ancestor in the void. After breaking through to the Eternal Sacred Ancestor level, the Eternal Sacred Ancestor was no longer a pawn in the enormous mutated world. He had the right to become a chess player. Whether it was the outer world or the inner world, he had the right to act as a supreme consciousness. He could sit back and watch from the sidelines as the Chaos Epoch changed. Even the Great Tribulation of the Chaos Epoch couldn't erase the Eternal Sacred Ancestor's existence. However, even with the Thunder Spirit Pearl, he hadn't truly reached the 6th level of the Eternal Secret Codex, even though he'd surpassed the average Eternal Lord Realm in battle. He still needed some time to work on it. Most importantly, there was a hidden benefit to the Eternal Secret Codex after reaching the 6th level. Qin Feng could begin to cultivate a second type of eternal power. A clash between eternal forefathers was a contest of the types of eternal power they had mastered and their understanding of it. Purple lightning surged from Qin Feng's body, and a destructive purple lightning twirled around him. Even though Luo Chang did not understand what realm Qin Feng was at, she knew that this mysterious powerhouse's cultivation had definitely improved greatly. The envy in Luo Chang's heart could not be contained. This was not surprising. After obtaining 4 of the 9 spirit pearls, anyone else would have a great improvement in their cultivation. However, his refining speed was not as fast as Qin Feng's. On top of the tall ancient tree and the bird's nest, the lightning around Qin Feng gradually dissipated, and the purple light disappeared. He opened his eyes and looked around. The ancient parasol tree was built on one of the mountain ridges, and there was a hidden volcanic crevice beneath its feet. Red light rushed out from the crevice, and a blazing aura seeped out from the crevice. In the distance, the golden phoenix that had escaped from its nest hovered above his head, not daring to land. The golden phoenix was a top divine bird, and its strength was comparable to that of a monarch. It already had its own intelligence and knew that it might have encountered an unparalleled powerhouse. Even though its nest had been stolen, it only dared to hover in the distance, not daring to act rashly. Sensing the changes in his body, Qin Feng's eyes flashed. Next, he had to find the other 4 spirit pearls. Of the 9 spirit pearls, he had already obtained the metal, water, and earth spirit pearls of the 5 elements. As for the wind spirit pearl, he had also obtained the thunder spirit pearl. He already knew where the wood spirit pearl was. This meant that his next target could be the other 4 spirit pearls: the fire spirit pearl, the wind spirit pearl, the pure yin pearl, and the pure yang pearl. With 4 spirit pearls in his body, he could sense the other 5 spirit pearls very strongly. Through this, Qin Feng looked in the direction of the Ji clan. Of the remaining 4 spirit pearls, the pure yang pearl and the wind spirit pearl seemed to be in the Ji clan's territory. "Let's go." With a wave of his sleeve, an invisible force swept up the green-clothed girl, whose thoughts were running wild, and the 2 of them flew toward the Ji clan's territory like a gust of wind. The Ji clan and the Ji clan were 2 large clans in the Mountain Sea, one gathering place that were not inferior to the Jiang clan at all. The Ji clan was named after the Ji River. In fact, the Ji River was not a very large water body. In the beginning, it might not have been comparable to the Jiang River, Ji River, and other water bodies that Qin Feng had seen. The reason why it was famous in the Mountain Sea was because the first generation of the Ji clan moved to the banks of the Ji River. Only then did they gain a foothold and grow stronger step by step, finally becoming a colossus on par with the Jiang clan. It was also thanks to the development of the Ji clan generation after generation of powerhouses that the Ji River swallowed the water bodies around it, which allowed it to span hundreds of millions of miles and be known as the Ji clan's #1 water body. However, although the Ji clan lived by the water, they were not famous for their water element. Above the Ji clan was the Yellow Emperor's celestial palace, and the Yellow Emperor was an earth element emperor. He was naturally skilled in comprehending the mysteries of earth. In the Jiang clan, the divine arbiters were mostly the water lords of the water bodies, while the mountain lords were only a minority. However, the Ji clan was the exact opposite. The mountain lords had a higher status, while the water lords were relatively fewer in number and had a higher status. The Ji clan was most famous for its 12 branches: Ji Yu Qi Ji Ting Ji Ren Sun Ji Ene. Qin Feng grabbed Luo Chang and crossed over mountains and rivers to reach the Qi clan's territory. The Qi clan under the Ji clan originated from a huge branch of the Ji River, the Qi clan. It was backed by Mount Qi, a place with excellent feng shui. Mount Qi was verdant and lush, surrounded by clouds and mist, like a soaring dragon soaring between heaven and earth. It was a spectacular sight. When his figure appeared in the sky above Mount Qi, Qin Feng sensed that the connection between the 9 spirit pearls had become extremely clear. Qin Feng could clearly sense that it was the wind spirit pearl of the 9 spirit pearls. However, Qin Feng did not rush down to seize the wind spirit pearl like he did when he obtained the earth spirit pearl. Qin Feng frowned as he looked at the clouds and mist below him. Among the countless majestic Qi clan members, there were 4 spirit pearls that were different from the ones he obtained. He sensed that the wind spirit pearl seemed to be in the hands of a very powerful Qi clan member. It was most likely a Qi clan desolate god. Below Mount Qi was the Qi clan's main camp. There were several powerful Qi clan desolate gods in seclusion. It was not difficult to kill these Qi clan desolate gods, but it was easy to alert the Yellow Emperor. When that time came, it would be even more difficult to seize the pure yang pearl. He turned his gaze and looked at the green-clothed girl beside him, who had a strange expression. An idea came to Qin Feng's mind. Chapter 1852. In the mountain range there was a place surrounded by divine trees. Here, one after another, tall spiraling dragon trees were spiraling. Their green branches were like coils of dragon scales, coiling around the mountain walls. The branches were the size of bowls, and the orange flowers swayed on the branches covered in dragon scales. A strange fragrance assailed the nostrils. For some experts who had comprehended the wood spirit, this kind of divine tree was even a precious treasure to increase the strength of the clan. On this bowl-sized divine tree, the green-clothed girl sat cross-legged. The wood spirit was absorbing the power of this divine tree, and the dense wood energy visible to the naked eye was absorbed by an illusory wood vine that appeared around her. The aura on her body became stronger. The aura grew. However, as her cultivation increased, the green-clothed girl couldn't help but look around. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger and nervousness. "Don't look around." At this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded in her ears. The green-clothed girl's heart skipped a beat. She was so frightened that she hurriedly closed her eyes, but she was cursing someone in her heart for being too heartless. "You actually used me as bait." The green-clothed girl was depressed. Feeling the spiritual bead on her body, she felt angry and wronged. She wanted to ruin someone's good fortune, but she didn't dare to get up. Probably sensing the green-clothed girl's grievance, an invisible voice sounded in her ears and comforted her. "Don't worry. With me here, that Qi clan expert can't hurt you. Moreover, I can promise you that if this matter succeeds, I will give you some benefits. Haven't you always been envious of my transformation technique? As long as this matter succeeds, I will teach you a transformation technique that will guarantee you endless benefits." The voice had a trace of a smile. Hearing this, the green-clothed girl's nervous eyes lit up. She had long been envious of Qin Feng's ability to transform. If she could cultivate it successfully, there was no doubt that it would be beneficial to her. No, at least a few more transformations. 3. The green-clothed girl bargained, but she wasn't satisfied. "All right, don't be dissatisfied. That transformation technique is extremely complicated. With your cultivation, you can only cultivate one. If you cultivate too many, it will only be harmful to you." "I see." The green-clothed girl was rather disappointed. She didn't doubt the truth of Qin Feng's words. "All right, that person is coming. Guard your mind and close your eyes." At this moment the voice sounded again. Hearing this, the young girl in green clothes was shocked. She quickly calmed her mind, closed her eyes, and sat cross-legged. She put all her attention on absorbing the wood qi of the revolving dragon wood. In the depths of the Qishan mountain range, there was a huge eye of the storm. This was a famous innate wind eye. The scorching innate wind eye blew out from the center of the wind eye, blowing away the mountain wind and forming many strange wind holes. Just like a person's 100 orifices, they were accessible in all directions. The natural wind power had been blowing all year round, and many precious natural wind essence stones had been born in the depths of the mountain range. Apart from that, all kinds of other treasures had also been born. In the center of the eye of the storm, on top of a large rock, a powerhouse dressed in gray with an unusually dignified aura was sitting cross-legged. He was surrounded by countless terrifying pale gray winds. Her hand seals changed. Countless wisps of gray wind filled the air, formless and impermanent. Above his head, there was a light gray bead that was faintly emitting a bright light. Under the bright light, it seemed to be able to control the countless thin gray wind that was like a divine blade. Wind bead. At this moment, the powerhouse on top of the rock, who looked like a god of wind, suddenly opened his eyes. A trace of surprise and excitement appeared. A spirit bead has appeared outside Mount Qi. In the blink of an eye, he stood up from the gray wind and looked outside the mountain. But instinctively there was still a trace of vigilance in his eyes. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed. It's a water spirit bead. It seems that a little girl who's not even at the king stage has accidentally picked it up. It seems that the heavens are on my side. A smile appeared in the gray-robed cultivator's eyes. He no longer hesitated. In an instant, he left the eye of the storm with a gust of wind. He passed through the countless wind holes on Mount Chi and appeared halfway up the mountain. Once he was halfway up the mountain, the powerhouse in gray turned into a howling gust of gray wind. He blew for tens of thousands of miles, passing through mountain after mountain. Above a ravine, the expert in gray found a whirlwind dragon tree that was as thick as a bull's mouth. It was clinging to the mountain wall. On the mountain wall, a young girl in green clinging to the revolving dragon wood caught his attention. The girl in green was absorbing the wood energy of the revolving dragon wood to nurture a wood spirit. Among the Ji clan's 12 clans, most of the Qi clan's disciples awakened a wood spirit. She might be a lucky little fellow in the clan. To be able to cultivate to the ancient stage at such a young age, she could be considered quite talented. The powerhouse in gray secretly guessed, but then his eyes turned fierce. But since you've met me, Qi Zhen, you can only count yourself unlucky. On the revolving dragon wood, the girl in green felt the undisguised ferocity in the eyes of the powerhouse. She felt as if her entire body was frozen by a terrifying warning. As if the god of death was staring at her, her mind shook violently. Am I going to die here? As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, the girl in green felt the terrifying warning fade away. She subconsciously raised her head to look at the sky. In the sky, a faint purple light appeared behind the figure in gray. As the light fell, Qin Feng appeared and waved his sleeve. It was as if the entire sky was covered by his sleeve. Even the terrifying figure in gray was suddenly sucked into the sleeve. With a flash of light, Qin Feng disappeared from the sky. When he reappeared, he was already beside the girl in green. Silently, he floated by the side of the mountain. The girl in green looked at the scene in a daze. She looked at Qin Feng, who suddenly appeared beside her. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock, and disbelief. She was sure that the powerhouse in gray who wanted to kill her must be a terrifying origami. However, this terrifying origami could not even resist in front of Master Qin Feng. In an instant, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. This kind of divine power was unbelievable. I've finally lured this guy out. Qin Feng chuckled like a young fisherman who had successfully caught a fish by the river. The powerhouse in gray was still suppressed in his sleeve. He released a stream of eternal saint energy and easily sealed him. With a flick of his sleeve, the powerhouse in gray flew out. At the same time as the powerhouse in gray looked furious, a gray light rushed out from his body. Wind bead. The powerhouse in gray stared at Qin Feng as if he wanted to eat him alive. At this time, he knew that he had been tricked. The girl in green who seemed to have delivered herself to him was just a bait. A trace of regret appeared in his eyes, and the anger in his heart almost exploded. Chapter 1853. Qin Feng glanced at the Qi clan's origami that had taken the bait. With a wave of his sleeve, he slammed the origami onto the mountain wall. With a flash in his eyes, 2 beams of golden light shot out from his eyes and landed on the origami's body. One could see with the naked eye that the origami's body had transformed into a similar spiraling dragon tree on the mountain wall, taking root on the mountain wall. Within the spiraling dragon tree, the origami's soul was sealed within. It was twisting madly as it tried to struggle. However, no matter what, it could not leave the roots. It could only toss and turn countless leaves and branches until their sap flew everywhere. However, there was nothing it could do. The girl in green looked at the scene with a horrified expression. A origami had been sealed so easily and turned into a mountain vine. How terrifying was such a method! Luo Chang shuddered. One could imagine how terrifying it would be to grow on the mountain wall and be blown by the wind every day. It could neither live nor die. It was fixed on the same spot every day. Qin Feng took a look at the desolate god. He was not intentionally torturing the Qi clan's desolate god. It was just that he could not kill the origami directly to avoid alerting the Yellow Emperor's heavenly palace. Hence, he could only seal it on the spot. Qin Feng glanced at the area. In order to prevent any ferocious beasts from discovering this place and eating the Qi clan's origami, Qin Feng waved his hand and laid down a natural maze around the area, ensuring that no one would discover this place within a short period of time. Finally, his gaze landed on the wind spirit pearl in front of his chest. He threw out a beam of eternal saint energy and absorbed it into his body, slowly refining it. This was the 5th wind spirit pearl that he had obtained. The eternal life chart in his body was getting brighter and brighter. It was faintly transforming into a solid state. The 14th precept of heaven and earth, the wind precept of heaven and earth, would be mastered by him soon. At the same time, under the girl in green's resentful gaze, Qin Feng waved his sleeve. The water spirit pearl flew out of the girl in green's body and landed in Qin Feng's hand. Next is the pure yang pearl. After storing the wind spirit pearl into his body, Qin Feng looked at the depths of Mount Qi. The shape of the Ji clan's 12 clans was like a huge circle. First, they were the guards guarding the surroundings. In the center was the Ji River, the true origin of the Ji clan. That place was called Yoxiong. In the distance, in the south of Yuxiong Kingdom, one could clearly see the huge city wall of Yuxiong. It stood majestically beside the Wei River, like the kingdom of a giant god on earth. A barbaric and majestic aura surged toward him. With just a glance, one could feel countless powerful auras within. On the bank of the rolling Ji River, on a small mound, a stream of light rolled up a gale and landed on the ground, revealing 2 figures. The girl in green looked around, and her gaze instantly locked onto Primordial. Beside the vast Ji River, a corner of Yuxiong Royal City could be vaguely seen through the clouds. Ji clan's lair. Luo Chang was in a daze as she stared at Qin Feng, her beautiful eyes turning pale. It's here. Closing his eyes and sensing the faint connection between the 9 spirit pearls in his body, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows and looked at the huge city under the clouds. This time, it was going to be troublesome. The owner of the pure yang pearl was most likely a core member of the Ji clan. My lord, what should we do now? Luo Chang looked at Qin Feng worriedly. She only hoped that this expert in front of her would not tell her that they had entered the Ji clan's lair. But obviously she was disappointed. Of course, we're entering the city. We're already at the city gate. Qin Feng's expression was calm. The girl was in a daze. Were they going to rob the experts of the Ji clan? This was the Ji clan's lair, and the Yellow Emperor's heavenly palace was here. Was he crazy? Qin Feng glanced at the pale girl. This little girl was so timid. She was a disgrace to those who had been reborn. He grabbed the girl's hand. Let's go. The gale blew past the Ji River, and they soon arrived in front of the huge city. The huge city gate was bustling with activity. An endless stream of people came from the deer-chasing plain in front of the huge city. Many experts emitted terrifying auras. They were strange beasts. Each of them emitted the aura of the wind and clouds. Many of them were divine demons. Thanks to the green-clothed girl, Qin Feng realized that many gods and devils would occasionally sweep their gazes over and land on the green-clothed girl beside him with great pressure. They were sizing her up. The green-clothed girl was so frightened by this gaze that she trembled. She hurriedly pulled Qin Feng's clothes like a little quail. Sensing this situation, Qin Feng snorted. The aura of the origami faintly appeared on his body. In the clan, after entering the king stage, one could control the wind and clouds and was qualified to be called a divine demon. However, compared to the origami, who were the top existences among the divine demons, there was still a huge gap in status. Sensing this primitive and barbaric aura, many divine demons' expressions immediately turned into respect. They did not dare to stare at the girl in green recklessly. With Qin Feng's protection, the girl in green heaved a sigh of relief. When clans dealt with each other, strength was the only law. If you were weaker than me, it was natural for me to steal your things and your woman. For the weak, this was very cruel. But for the strong, this was undoubtedly another kind of enjoyment. As long as there was the protection of the strong, no one would dare to act recklessly. The girl in green could clearly feel that the surrounding gazes were filled with respect and envy. They were no longer naked. They were weighing the gains and losses and whether it was worth snatching. There were no guards in front of the city gate, but Qin Feng could clearly feel that there was another mysterious force in the city that had locked onto the two of them. If the two of them committed a crime in the city and escaped to the ends of the earth, they would be caught. This is a divine city. Qin Feng's eyes flickered with a strange light. If it was an ordinary expert, they would probably not dare to have any other thoughts after being intimidated by this. However, Qin Feng did not care at all. They passed through the unguarded city gate. The city was even more magnificent than he had imagined. This huge city was divided into dozens of areas. Each area had its own function. The living area, the market area, the trading area, the residential area, the training area, and the refining area were dazzling. It was grand and imposing. The girl in green looked at it with great interest. The girl in green came from a very large clan, but compared to the royal city in front of her, there was still a big gap. For the girl in green, this was the first time she had seen such a scene. The royal city was extremely lively. The dozens of areas were filled with fiend gods. The bustling scene was too much for the eyes to take in. Qin Feng was able to see even further. He discovered that in the depths of this royal city, there were many other mysterious regions. Using his divine eyes, he could see that in these regions, there seemed to be countless small worlds of the divine realms that had been opened up. Yuan Qi seethed and the land was vast. In these small worlds of the divine realms, there were countless clans and clans that lived there. The number of living creatures raised in them was shocking. Many of them had already embarked on a unique path of civilization. This was truly a terrifying divine city. It was actually a world that raised so many living creatures. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.